Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Conversation. I am your sometimes host, Francesca Fiorentini. I hope you're doing very, very well. I'm really excited for today's show. We've got two awesome guests. My first guest is a Democratic strategist, former vice president of GLAAD, LGBTQ rights leader, founder of ZS Strategies, because his name is Zeke Stokes. Zeke, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to see you.
Yeah, so this has been a really interesting moment for LGBTQ rights. Obviously, now with a Democratic president in the White House, reversing some of the awful slash and burn policies of the Trump administration, but also in a couple of ways with new representatives, specifically Marjorie Taylor Greene, essentially trolling the daughter of Representative Marie Newman, and having like sign wars outside of their offices. You have Senator Rand Paul grilling a nominee of the Biden administration, the Assistant Secretary of Health, who is trans, saying things like genital mutilation and just kind of going off on them. And then you have the Equality Act, right? So this expansion of the Civil Rights Act, preventing discrimination based on sexuality and gender identity, all of this together, where do you feel like we're at when it comes to this movement, when it comes to expanding rights for the LGBTQ community, given everything that's going on?
I know all in the span of 8 or 10 days, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was a great day for the Equality Act to once again pass the U.S. House of Representatives under the leadership of Speaker Pelosi and the Democrats in charge there. It passed back in 2019, but of course we still had Mitch McConnell in charge of the U.S. Senate, who would not allow it to come up for a vote. The Equality Act would essentially provide explicit and consistent non-discrimination protections across the country in areas like employment, housing, jury service, public services and accommodations, all of those types of things. Because what we have right now really is a patchwork of protection. So, I may be protected when I try to go rent an apartment in New York City, but if I go across state lines to some other state, I may not be protected, and that may be through no fault of my own. I may get transferred by my job, and suddenly I'm not protected. So we need those protections to be explicit across the country. Now, the good news is that 90% of Americans believe that LGBTQ people should be treated fairly under the law, and in fact, more than 70% support the explicit protections that the Equality Act provides. And that's not just Democrats and independents. More than 70% of Republicans also support that. So what we're looking at right now, as it relates to the Equality Act, is a vote that's going to hopefully take place in the Senate sooner rather than later, with Majority Leader Schumer saying that he will bring it to the floor for a vote. But unfortunately, we've got this nasty thing called the filibuster in the way. So we're going to need to get to 60 votes on this over in the Senate. And it's going to be very tough because Republicans in the Senate really aren't listening to what Americans are saying as it relates to this Equality Act.
Yeah. I know one of the sticking points for Republicans somehow, and this has sort of been, as Christian nationalism essentially has crept into government and into the Republican Party. One of the things they're using kind of as a cudgel is this idea of religious liberty, that county clerks or bakers, don't have to, basically places of employment don't have to provide the equal protections or serve LGBTQ people equally. And some of senators are on board with that notion. What would this act do to that religious liberty? All those religious liberty I believe it. There's like an amendment or an act that like the Trump administration basically warped in the favor of essentially people who want to discriminate against gay people. What would this act mean for that?
So this act does nothing to compromise religious liberty in this country. It's embedded into our Constitution, and providing equal protections for LGBTQ people does nothing to change that. But there is a group of people led mostly by Republicans who want to insert these amendments that would somehow create these carve-outs so that all I have to say to discriminate against someone is that it's a part of my deeply held religious beliefs. And it goes so much deeper than serving my husband and me a piece of cake or sitting down in a restaurant. What if I'm in a small rural town and I need to take my child to the emergency room and it's the only emergency room in town? and it's the middle of the night, and the doctor says, no, it's against my my deeply held religious beliefs to serve your kid because you're same-sex parents. That's the kind of danger that LGBTQ people are in across this country, and that's why we need this Equality Act. These so-called religious liberty carve-outs, religious exemptions, they're really nothing more than a license to discriminate by people who want to discriminate in the first place. And it also assumes that LGBTQ people can't also be religious people. There are many, many LGBTQ people of faith, and so they like to raise this sort of fake issue of God versus gay, but it's not that. It's really just a question of whether or not we should be treating all of God's children, if you believe that way, the same under the law.
Amen. You brought up God.
Absolutely.
Amen. I believe in that. I think it's so interesting though that, and I guess wondering your thoughts on this, that especially when it comes to trans rights, it just seems like the right has used like transgender people and transgender Americans as just like their final culture war battle. I mean, again, with Representative Marie Newman and then with Rand Paul, just like that disgusting display. Like, why do you feel like they're still using, attacks on the LGBTQ community in their court? And like, what is it gonna take to finally dismantle that?
The right wing that honestly controls the Republican Party right now, they can't win elections without attacking some marginalized community. We saw it with Donald Trump over the last 4 years, whether it's women or people of color or immigrants or Muslims or people with disabilities. They've sort of been through the whole list, and every few years they pick a new community to target. At one point it was gay people. We were going to have a federal marriage amendment to stop gay people from getting married, and then when the tide turned among Americans on that, they moved on to the next thing. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to trans people, only about 20% of people in this country say they know someone personally who is trans, and so we have a lot of education to do among the American public about what it means to be trans. When you juxtapose that to folks who say they know someone who is openly gay or lesbian, that number is 80% plus. And when you know someone personally, that's what changes public opinion. And so they're depending on this lack of education, this lack of familiarity to demonize trans people. But trans people are in our lives every day, whether you know it or not. They're here to stay. And in fact, these attacks that were launched by Rand Paul and Marjorie Taylor Greene and others this week are based in misinformation and lies and myths about what it means to be trans, and really not in the medical science of that has been established for many years about how to treat trans people and what it means to be transgender in this country. So it's unfortunate, but I think the tide will eventually turn and they'll move on to some other community to villainize. But in the meantime, people's lives are at risk when you have this kind of rhetoric in the public space. We saw it on display January 6th, and this is just a microcosm of that. When you raise this type of rhetoric, it puts people's lives in danger, and it has to stop.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on whether this will pass the Senate or not? Do you think that there could be 10 Republicans on board, or do you think it has to basically, are we gonna have to abolish a filibuster to have such a basic protection for so many Americans?
Well, I think we need to abolish the filibuster regardless. It's standing in the way of so many things. I'm hopeful that we can get to 60 in the Senate. It's going to be very tough, I will say, and I think there will be efforts to sort of water this down and create these religious carve-outs. And I'm hopeful that the Democrats in the majority and fair-minded Republicans who are looking at this and claim they care about LGBTQ people will resist those efforts and will allow this to move forward and provide the kinds of protections that LGBTQ people need in this country. We provide those protections for race and disability and gender and lots of other things, but LGBTQ people are not explicitly protected, and most Americans actually think we are, and the fact is we're not.
Yeah. One last question. I thought that the Supreme Court, I was reading about this, that the Supreme Court ruled that gender identity and sexual orientation, those are protected when it comes to anti-discrimination laws. And yet we still need this extra layer. Can you talk about that, or how does that interplay?
Sure. There was a ruling at the Supreme Court last year, actually, in the Bostock case, that ruled that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act should be interpreted, sex discrimination should be interpreted to mean sexual orientation and gender identity. And of course, the new Biden administration has now directed federal agencies to interpret that even further. But what we need now is not to depend on the interpretation of the Supreme Court or a friendly administration. We need to codify it into law, and that's what the Equality Act would do.
Absolutely. Zeke Stokes, thank you so much for breaking this down for us. It's something we have to continue to fight for and follow. And oh my gosh, it's the year 2021. Let's do it.
Let's move on, right? Thank you so much for talking about it and educating your viewers.
Of course. Thank you. And be well.
You too.
We're very honest that we're progressives. We call the Young Turks home of progressives, and we support progressive candidates.
There has been this reemergence of political activism, especially among young people.
This weekend was the second Women's March, both across the US and across the world. So these people are not simply marching, they're not simply talking, they're also running for office. And when they do run, they're gonna make a difference.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful. Why? He raised a lot of money. But there's someone finally challenging him.
We need to have representation that advocates as fiercely for working class people as possible from this seat.
If candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even get a little bit of media attention outside of what the Young Turks does, they have an excellent chance of winning. She's gonna win. She's gonna win.
68% reporting.
The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want.
We believe in total change. Everything runs on donor money. And that is what we will fight, and that is exactly why they don't like us.
We're having fun, it's election night!
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Here we go again!
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Crowley! Down goes Crowley! Down goes Manafort! Down goes Cohen! Women came out in record numbers in the primaries. They said, you'll be lucky to get one candidate. We now have 12 that have won their primaries. Bezos and Amazon announcing that they are going to go to a 15-hour minimum wage.
We're making progress. Let's keep going.
Many of these women made history.
The biggest victories, all women of color. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Sharice Davids and Deb Haaland.
And I want to go to Congress because I want to change those things.
I'm calling it. Jamal Bowman has won. Down goes Engel. Down goes Engel.
For a long time, we have not had progressives in power. It's going to be something to behold.
Welcome to the Happy Half Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
Let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word. Okay. This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull piss.
Drink it, swallow it,
No.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually gonna show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze.
Yes.
Frozen crash.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Hey, welcome back to the conversation. I'm Francesca Fiorentini, and my next guest is doing something really awesome that I think is giving me life right now, given that everything is terrible. But he is a New York City teacher and the CEO of Creating for Justice. Please welcome Taylor Masamitsu. Taylor, when I read about Creating for Justice, I was immediately excited and went to the website. But just tell the audience, what is Creating for Justice?
So, Creating for Justice is this network of activists and other professionals who use their individual skill sets to combat systemic racism.
And how do you do that? Because you have a really innovative, and I say that in the least techie way possible, but a really like people to people innovative way of doing that, of actually, of doing what you just said. So how does your website work? How does it work?
So at Creating for Justice, or CFJ, we recognize that donating is in and of itself a privilege. But that doesn't just include monetary donations, that also includes volunteering, donating your time. So the way that it works is every single person at CFJ is a volunteer. I'm a volunteer, board of directors are volunteers, everyone is a volunteer. But we have this amazing team of volunteers who provide services. And each volunteer has then selected an organization, another anti-racist organization, to benefit from their services. And just to give you a little bit of the scope or the breadth of it all, we have everything from tax help to voice lessons to ergonomic health, nutrition counseling, and English and Spanish. We got a bunch of stuff. Definitely check it out at creatingforjustice.org/services. But then let's say you wanted to take a voice lesson with me and you gave us $1. That buck then goes to the Okra Project because that's my organization that I've chosen. And in turn, I will give you a 30-minute voice lesson.
Wow. And so it's sort of donation only, and like who do you imagine is, first of all, who's volunteering, and on the other side, who is soliciting the services? Who wants to take a 30-minute voice lesson with you for $1? Like, who are you hoping to reach?
So right now, the people who are providing services are all vetted, established professionals in their respective fields. We are in 6 different states and 3 different time zones, so we have a pretty diverse group, at least geographically. And the people that we're hoping to get to take advantage of our services are people who are maybe interested in trying a new skill, or people who may not want to spend $50+ on a voice lesson or a graphic design help or tax planning.
Yeah. So anyone, really.
Anyone. We are open. We believe that fighting systemic racism is an all hands on deck situation, and we welcome anyone to get involved in the fight.
And so essentially, if whatever you're paid for the lesson, whatever the provider is paid, that will then immediately go. You're donating your time, and that all that money or whatever is being paid is going to an organization of your choice. And what kinds of organizations? I know that actually this project came out of the Black Lives Matter resurgent movement of last year. It's a fairly new thing. Can maybe talk about sort of the origin of it?
Sure, I'd love to. So last summer, like you said, there were these really necessary revitalized calls for social justice in the US and around the world. And it was on Breonna Taylor's birthday that my husband and I went to a vigil. And we came home and we just got stuck on this one question that has sort of become the guiding principle of CFJ. And that's, what talents do you have that can set people free? And like I said, I'm a voice teacher, but he's a financial advisor. And so we have pretty disparate fields. And CFJ really came to be in trying to figure out how we could both sustainably work towards fighting oppression and fighting systemic racism for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. Right, in a way that can also utilize your unique skills, which might not necessarily be in organizing a rally or taking to the streets, although important, but yet providing skills. And maybe some of the people who are actually taking the, needing the skills are organizers themselves.
Yes.
And people who are generally, not able to access financial services, right, or tax services.
Sure, and I think to your point, we also have a bunch of volunteers who just help us with administration. And at CFJ, like I said, we're here for anyone. We're a home for any single person who wants to get involved. If you have 10 hours a week or 1 hour total, I'd love to hear from you. And actually, right now, we are looking for 2 volunteers. We're looking for someone specifically to help out with our social media. And we're looking for someone to really take the helm of Amplify, which is our monthly anti-racist resource guide.
That's awesome. All right, everyone, you've been warned. Also, I was like looking on the site and there's breastfeeding classes. I was like, wow, that's amazing. There's just everything.
In English and Spanish.
It's amazing. I mean, it does really feel to me, and maybe this is not the intention, but it feels incredibly radical as someone who has a huge critique of capitalism, a huge critique of the way that we are commodified, right? And all of our skills, and now you need, endless amounts of training and endless, degrees to just barely make it by, especially in a creative field. This is a real way of democratizing the creative field. And kind of like skirting around a little bit of a capitalist economy. Does that factor in at all to how you think of CFJ?
100%. Like you said at the very beginning, I'm a teacher. That is my trade. And I love going to school. That's just part of me. But I've been to a lot of school, and I really do believe that education should be available. And as a music teacher, I think music education, quality music education, should be available to anyone who wants it. I'm not going to force you to learn how to sing, but I would love to help you learn how to sing if that's something that's interesting to you. So that is this idea of accessible education, and doing whatever we can to make it more accessible is absolutely one of our founding principles.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then the same idea with just bartering, right? I mean, I think the idea that you can, like even bank. I mean, you could see it getting to the point where you can like bank points and like, then get barter your lessons or et cetera, exchange things. Anyway, what kinds of organizations are you donating to? I know it's obviously social justice and racial justice primarily. And how do those organizations get in touch with you?
Well, right now, all of our volunteers have chosen organizations that their services fund. So we haven't been approached by any of these organizations, but rather we've just donated to them. Right. But some of them, just off the top of my head, are the Ochre Project, the Transgender District, the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition, Black Lives Matter, the NAACP, Fuel the People, Black Men Heal, Mirror Memoirs, the Austin Justice Coalition. There are a bunch.
Damn. That's amazing. No, and I think the other thing that is, because often, I think about a graphic designer like sort of tertiating the donation is like, well, why not just help the organization? But a voice coach, not every racial justice organization necessarily needs a voice coach. Or I do stand-up comedy. I could probably help with someone's writing or stand-up presentation. You don't really need that if you're, the Ochre Project necessarily.
Right.
So it's a nice way to, I think even center and monetize in a most beautiful way, like creative fields like ours in some ways.
Absolutely. And I think it's a way to incentivize people who do have a little extra cash or a little extra time to get involved where they otherwise might not.
Yeah. What about therapy?
That's actually something that we are really interested in offering. We have it actually been one of the most commonly requested services.
Yeah.
So that is, if you are a therapist and have some know-how about how to logistically pull that off in this virtual national sphere, I'd love to hear from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. My mind went there because therapy, it's like always like a sliding scale. And then even when you access a lot of these things, it's still like the wait time is incredibly long. So I love that this is a workaround. It's funny because like usually these things always feel like, oh, we're sort of like plugging a hole that the government should have done, and that like, something we've ignored for way too long. But this actually feels like much more people-based and less sort of nonprofit based, because it is really about person-to-person skill sharing. I love that kind of stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to add? And how many volunteers do you guys have at this point?
Right now we have 15 volunteers who provide services. But the entire team is about 25 volunteers. And like I said, we're in 6 different states and 3 different time zones.
And you can take classes on Zoom. Taylor Masamitsu, Creating for Justice is the name of the organization, and it's creatingforjustice.org.
Yes, it is.
Get there, browse the services, sign up, become a volunteer yourself if you do have the time. I love this, and thank you so much for stopping by and telling us all about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Jane Cougar, Anna Kasparian with you guys. I need you to understand what kind of a momentous show this is going to be. I need you to understand it. I need you to understand how powerful you are, and you're about to understand it. So in this show, do we have Bernie? Yes. Do we have him enough? Well, that's the question at hand, isn't it? Do we have Biden? Yes. Do we have Trump? Unfortunately, yes. Cuomo, yes. So MBS, we're gonna take him apart. Okay. Anyways, no. Well, we should have done something to him. We should have done something to him, and we did nothing instead. So, anyways, we will talk about all of that. It's a ridiculous show. I don't even want to tell you what the kids call it. All right. So, Anna, as you know, I'm gonna get started. We'll talk about Bernie first. Okay. So here we go. So, COVID relief bill was supposed to have $15 minimum wage in it, and in fact, it does. The House already passed that version of it, so that is the Democratic version of the bill. Now, good news: almost every Democrat says yes. This is a policy goal of theirs to get $15 minimum wage. Of course, Bernie Sanders says that. So does Joe Biden. So does Kamala Harris. They really, really want it, so they're going to kill it. And for note to all journalists, when someone says they want it and they kill it, that means they don't actually want it. You shouldn't write that they want it if that's what they're gonna do. Now, is it over? No. Is Bernie considering moving forward with it? Yes. Has he decided that already? Well, that's the shocking part. The answer is no. And as things stood on Friday when we came to you, it was not slated to be in the bill at all because of the so-called parliamentarian. Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris said, we love the parliamentarian more than we love 32 million people who would get a raise. We are not going to put it in the bill. The parliamentarian has absolutely no power, none, zero. They give advice, and I also give advice. How insane would it be if Kamala Harris was like, you know what, I think, actually, if she followed our advice, it would be far more sane. But if she just said, I'm gonna follow a rando advice and kill one of the most important policy proposals of our administration, get off of it. No way, they don't want it. Anyway, but I know Bernie wants it. He's fought for 40 years, but he's obviously receiving pressure from Washington to not put it in the bill. So we decided, we love you, Bernie, but we're gonna put pressure right back because that's our job. So we started a campaign on Friday that is on fire. It's hashtag don't kill it, Bernie. And so we're asking something so simple of Bernie Sanders. Put it in the bill, put it in the bill. If they want to take it out, by the way, they might need 60 votes. Just put it in the bill, okay? And yes, unfortunately, we got to convince him at this point. Is he close? I hope he's close. So guys, over 8,000 of you signed this petition. Did they notice? I'm here to tell you, they definitely noticed. Make it 10,000, make it 20 if you got to, but we gotta go right now because we need time to pressure Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, and the rest of them after Bernie says yes. As you'll see later in the show today, Justice Democrats coming for the rescue from the House. Ro Khanna leads a cavalry charge that is awesome. Elizabeth Warren now saying, put it in the bill. Bernie, everybody's saying it, put it in the bill. So I know some of you are stunned, like, what do you mean? How could it not be in the bill? The House passed that version. Well, that's what we're saying. The Senate should obviously have it in the bill. Bernie is the budget chair. If you're asking why Bernie, he is the chair of the budget committee. Normally when a bill comes over from the other House, it is the job of the chair to maintain that bill and to write that bill. If Chuck Schumer wants to overrule Bernie Sanders, let him try to do that, okay? But there's a reason why you are the chair. Hashtag don't kill it, Bernie. Use the hashtag. It was already trending on Friday. And then so many of you did videos. I want to show you the videos. And this totally worked. I love you guys for participating. We need more of this because when they see your face, it's hard to say no. So let me show you a small compilation of all the dozens of videos that TYT viewers did. And it made, I think it's gonna make all the difference. But let's watch first, Anna.
I'm calling upon you to please put the federal minimum wage of $15 an hour onto the bill to be voted on. I've been a fan of you for years. Please be the fighter that we need. We love you, Bernie. Please fight for us.
Don't kill it. If you kill it, we'll lose to fascists in 2022 and 2024. That's how to put it simply.
We need you to make sure the $15 minimum wage is in the bill. You taught me to fight for someone you don't know because you believe everyone in this country should have a living wage and not a starving wage.
I'm the manager of a small business in Florida, and unfortunately we have a high turnover rate, mostly because the staff are living under poverty wages of $10 an hour, and the business owner will not raise their wages. Don't kill it, Bernie. Make them vote. Make them decide.
Bernie, we need you. I don't know how many of these I passed out during the primaries. Please don't kill it.
There's no other way. You and the other progressives, you've got to stand up.
Now is not the time to stop that fight. Now is the time to plant your feet, fight even harder, and make sure you keep this $15 minimum wage in the COVID relief bill. I hope you have the courage and the strength to do what you need to for the people.
Look, I can't tell you enough how much I love you guys and how much of a difference you make. I know for a fact in this case you made a difference. So Anna, the two women in that video particularly, when I watched their full videos, and they're supposed to be around 30 seconds, and everybody was about 30 seconds to a minute. So easy. But the two women there nearly made me cry. When the first one said, "You taught me that I'm supposed to fight for someone I don't know." And the other one said, "Look, I spent a lot of time passing these out because I thought we meant it." And they all do it with love because they respect Bernie so much. But this is not a hard ask. We've got to do this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. And if ever there was a time for Bernie to use his position of power, that time is now. So it should be included in the coronavirus relief bill because it would not pass as a standalone bill. If they're going to go along with what some unelected Senate parliamentarian has to say about this particular provision, understand that there's no way in hell that a standalone minimum wage bill would pass if they tried to do it again under reconciliation. They're not going to be able to get enough Republican lawmakers to pass with 60 votes. And so this is really our only shot. So if Bernie keeps that provision in the bill, then all the pressure needs to be focused on Kamala Harris, who presides over the Senate and would be able to overrule the parliamentarians', in my opinion, incredibly irrelevant opinion on whether or not this should be included in the bill. The fact that tax cuts for the rich passed under reconciliation in the Republican-controlled Senate tells you everything you need to know about how ridiculous this process is. And there's really no excuse at this point for anyone, including Bernie Sanders, to not include it in the final version of the Senate coronavirus relief bill. There's nothing that Bernie can argue in favor of taking that out. If he uses the excuse of the Senate parliamentarian, I'm sorry, that's an incredibly pathetic thing to point to when he is in this position of power. They can't isolate him. He is the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, an incredibly powerful committee. He has nothing to lose in fighting for this $15 an hour minimum wage. So it should absolutely be in the final version of the bill. And then as soon as we have confirmation of that, all the pressure needs to be on Kamala Harris to do the right thing because she campaigned. And Joe Biden campaigned on increasing the federal minimum wage, which by the way, has not been increased since 2009, still stands at $7.25. It's pathetic. If Democrats can't get it passed now when they have the slim majorities in the House of Representatives and the Senate and a Democrat sitting in the White House, then I'm not ever gonna believe that they're actually genuine in wanting to pass it. I'm just keeping it real.
Yeah, so last couple of things here on this. So first of all, look, the only thing I could imagine as to why Bernie wouldn't put in the bill is so that he doesn't embarrass his fellow Democrats because they don't actually want it. So they want to make sure that it's not in the bill and they're not blamed for it. The last thing they want to do is vote on it because they've been saying they want it. When my theory is they never wanted it. It was always going to be political theater. So if Bernie helps them cover up for it, no, you're not being polite to your colleagues. That is horribly, horribly impolite to your voters. And by the way, guaranteed they pulled a football on you and later say, "Oh, Bernie was the bag man." What do you mean? Bernie's the one who killed it. So there's
100%. 100%, 100%. Bernie has always stood out as the one lawmaker who always puts the best interests of the people ahead of his own best interests, ahead of maintaining a polite relationship with other members of Congress. Now is not the time for him to move away from what he represents, what he has represented. And I absolutely do agree with the woman that we showed in the video who said, hey, you taught us to fight. And so we've been fighting alongside Bernie Sanders, and at this very moment, we really need him to show us that he's willing to fight on behalf of the people. Once he has this position of power now. What's the point of having that position of power? What's the point of building your political career successfully all these years and not actually coming through when you have the ability to do that?
Yeah, and so look, for those of you online who don't get it and who are like, oh, Cenk, you must misunderstand the process, that what you're saying can't be true. Bernie is great, he wouldn't take it out of the bill. Well, I'm right, because there's no statement at all right now from Bernie Sanders saying he's gonna put it in the bill. So you could look that up, you could ask any reporter worth their salt on it. It is currently not in their plans. I think he's going to turn around. I think you guys affected him a lot, and I love you for doing that. But right now, he hasn't yet. So that's just the reality. I'm trying to get past step one. I can't believe we're at step one because we got to get to step two, which is pressuring Kamala Harris. Did you mean it or didn't you mean it? And that's it. And guys, if Kamala Harris rules the right way, she has complete power and discretion to rule the right way, then the Republicans likely need 60 votes to block it. You know what that means? That means it's relatively easy to win. We can actually win on this. So let's go do that right now. So sign the petition, use the hashtag, include @Bernie Sanders. Make sure you get him the message. We love you, but you've got to do this. This is nowhere near optional. All right, now let's get on to other good news on this same topic.
All right, so we do have a little bit of good news. So let's get to that. So senior Democrats in the Senate are luckily backing off of their disastrous Plan B to pressure employers to pay their workers $15 an hour in minimum wage. Now, this was the Plan B following word that the Senate parliamentarian, an unelected individual, had decided that the $15 an hour minimum wage hike could not be included in the coronavirus relief package because it doesn't pass something known as the Byrd rule. Now, that's something that is incredibly irrelevant. People in this country don't care. They want a federal minimum wage hike, and it's something that can easily be overruled by the person who presides over the Senate, which is Kamala Harris. So it's a non-binding opinion by an unelected person in the Senate referred to as a Senate parliamentarian. She can be overruled. But before we even had a chance to discuss that, Bernie Sanders and Ron Wyden in the Senate had their own Plan B ready. Now they're backing off of that Plan B because it is disastrous. Let me tell you what the details are. So after the Senate parliamentarian said that $15 an hour for the minimum wage hike was inadmissible under the rules, Senate Finance Chair Ron Wyden and Senate Budget Chair Bernie Sanders said that they would instead seek to add tax penalties on large corporations that fail to pay a $15 an hour minimum wage, or a $15 an hour wage, I should say. Now, they're backing off of it because experts have weighed in and they said, well, there's actually some pretty significant loopholes here. For instance, large employers can very easily reclassify their employees as contractors, which would indicate that they could skirt the tax penalties for not paying these workers $15 an hour. And I'm glad that they're backing off of that because the fact that they immediately went to this pretty sad and pathetic Plan B shows that there was, at least in the short term, this idea of abandoning $15 an hour as a provision in the coronavirus relief package. That does not need to happen. Let's be absolutely clear. That does not need to happen. Kamala Harris can overrule the Senate parliamentarian. There is going to be a bit of a fight on that, though, because Biden's top economic advisor, Brian Deese, has said over the weekend on several interviews what you're about to hear.
We think that through a tax provision, which says that if you're not
Progressives want the vice president to get involved. She has the ability to overrule the Senate parliamentarian I know that Ron Klain already weighed in on this and said that that was unlikely. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, no, the vice president's not going to weigh in. The president and the vice president both respect the parliamentarian's decision and the process. We don't agree with it. We're disappointed by it, but we'll respect that process. And our focus is now going to be to get with congressional leadership, determine the best path forward for the minimum wage, and at the same time move quickly to get the American Rescue Plan passed.
There is no other real way of getting $15 an hour minimum wage passed. This is our only real shot. And we'll talk a little more about Kamala Harris later in the show. But Cenk, I wanted to give you an opportunity to jump in on that plan B that luckily now Senator Sanders is backing off of.
Yeah, real quick on that guy from the White House saying we're going to respect. And I'm like, okay, let's see how this sentence ends. Is it our voters? Is it respect the promises we made? Is it respect workers, 32 million workers in this country, hard workers working all year long for the minimum wage? No, the sentence ended with, we respect the parliamentarian? We respect the process? So you respect some antiquated process, which by the way is not at all in the Constitution and has no force of law, over 32 million people who would, a lot of whom would double their salaries, would get in total $92 billion raise every single year. No, you guys, it's a joke. It's a joke. They never meant it. They're lying. Let's just, reporters, please do your job. Please do your job. You can't say I'm killing the minimum wage, but I wanted it to pass. That's not a thing. By killing it, you're saying I did not want it to pass. So that's on Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. We're gonna get to that step next. But step one is the one that you're alluding to, which is what is Bernie Sanders going to do? Well, Bernie Sanders doesn't have it in the bill now. We're doing this campaign, hashtag Don't Kill It Bernie, and we've got it in tyt.com/petitions /Don't Kill It Bernie. And that is, I believe it's working. And that example of that and evidence of that is this. This plan was weak sauce, this plan B. Okay, we're not gonna do a $15 minimum wage, but we'll start to do this super complicated formula about taxing some corporations on some of their employees. Well, here's why it didn't make any sense. So number one, we didn't ask for that. We asked for $15 minimum wage, and the pressure that literally the TYT audience put on in a good and loving way, I think was a giant part of them going, yeah, this is weak sauce, okay? Number two, there's no guarantee that would pass. That would have the same exact problem with the $15 minimum wage. And then we do a lot of work behind the scenes to check, double check, quadruple check things, especially things this important and about process. So there was no plan to get that plan B passed either. All it was gonna do, it was gonna take away all of the energy about the fight for 15, and it's literally called the fight for 15, okay? Not to ask the parliamentarian for 15. And so it was gonna take that energy away and make you try to pass a thing that no one understands. And then at the end, people are like, you didn't even write this yet. So Biden and Sanders hadn't written it. It was obviously a face-saving gesture to protect Biden and Harris. No deal, no deal. And so they realized that, and that's good news. So they pulled it. So now there is no plan B, so it's gotta be plan A. And he's gotta put it in the bill. If he puts it in the bill, then it is harder to take out. If you're voting on it by itself, then it becomes easier to defeat. So there are certain rules in the Senate we can't get around. The parliamentarian is not one of them, okay? So put it in the bill, and then we got an actual fighter's chance of winning. And I love that plan B is trashed, and the whole country should thank TYT viewers for helping to get rid of that nonsense so we can go back to the real deal, $15 minimum wage.
Damn right, TYT Army's way too strong, but we're not done yet with this story. We have one other small victory to share with you all, but we won't be able to do that until we come back from our break, so stick around, we'll be right back.
right, back during the break, there's so many wonderful comments. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get to all of them, but let's start in Twitch. Darts Throwers, who's been with us for 4 months using Prime, says, I'll be honest, I'm just here for Anna's rants. Okay.
Well, you'll get them. You'll get them.
100. Okay. That's a new thing. 100. The real Pac-Man writes in, and he's been with us for 9 months using Amazon Prime. If you got Amazon Prime, it's free for you. Why wouldn't you do it? Are you a bad guy or something? No, I'm kidding. Everybody can do whatever they want, right? But if you have Amazon Prime, we get the money and it's free to you guys. So you could do that. You could sign up any way you like. Anyways, he says 9-month Turkiversary, been down for years and there's nowhere else I'm getting my news. Thank you, Cenk and Anna, for keeping it 100. Hashtag SM Oklahoma, which I assume means shake my Oklahoma. But I don't know. Barbudo222 writes in, what has Bernie saved political capital for, if not this one historic moment?
Exactly.
Did we just say that at the same time? Jinx.
Yeah.
I learned that from my kids. Okay.
I said it a little faster than you did, but it's okay.
No, okay, that's
we
a
had
good
the same
thing.
thought.
That's a good thing. You know what? Because according to my kids' rules, that means you're not allowed to talk anymore. Okay, so that would kind of hurt the point of the show. But anyways, I won't hold you to it, Anna. All right, we're going forward. Willow Maker Drag has been with us for 4 months, also through Prime. It says 4 months with my hashtag Bezos bucks. I still have my YouTube subscription, but love my Twitch fam. Double subscribed, double love. All right, listen, if you're on YouTube, you hit the join button below. I mean, if you think they got it easy on Twitch, just hit a button. I mean, yeah, but the lowest level is $2, $1.99. By the way, I won't, $1.99 means $2. Keep it real, okay? It's just the way YouTube prices it. All right, anyways, Claudia Westbrook just did that. Kind of an American hero. Heidi DeJong, Genzi Baker. I don't even know if they're from America, but they're heroes nonetheless. Thank you guys. We do this show together. We win together. Look at what's happening today. Sean Umpleby writes it on YouTube super chat. Cenk and Anna, I appreciate all that you do. Miss the main show so much. I hope this gets read because I also appreciate all the supporters. We make this show. Keep the progressive pressure on. Love. Yes, that's exactly right. We do this show together. Without you guys, we got nothing. Imagine me going to legislators and going, I happen to think this. They're like, so what? Who cares, right? But if you happen to think it all together, then they care a lot, okay? So that's awesome, and thank you for, in a sense, making us your representative. It's really an honor, I'm not kidding. And then Roy Lehman asked an important question in the member section. Cenk, suppose it's included and is voted down. Can that be stripped out and then vote on it again? So there are different layers that you could vote on it, but each layer gets more difficult, okay? So as a standalone bill, which I favor because it has a lot of political upsides, unfortunately it doesn't work because then you get hit with the filibuster super hard. All right, we'll talk more in a second. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys on an important day here as we fight for the minimum wage. We are neck deep in this fight right now, and it's a fight we can actually win. We've got to show courage here and leadership, and it turns out that our progressive legislators in the House actually have. Look at that, amazing. Okay, Anna's gonna give you the story. I'm gonna give you the hype because I'm super excited.
All right. Well, 23 progressives in the House of Representatives have signed a letter urging Vice President Kamala Harris to overrule the unelected Senate parliamentarian who recommended stripping the coronavirus relief bill of the proposal to increase the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, Representative Ro Khanna argued that Harris, as the presiding senator, has the power to do this. Listen. Oh, my bad. I actually have graphics.
Progressive.
So Ro Khanna said this. Sorry about that, guys. That was my mistake. I am not on my A game today, but I will fix it. So this is what Ro Khanna said. He says, quote, "We believe that the bill the president signs must include the House-passed minimum wage legislation. This is the moment to get this done, and it is within our control." The letter itself, by the way, said this: 81 million people cast their ballots to elect you, meaning Joe Biden, on a platform that called for $15 an hour minimum wage. We urge you to keep that promise. We must act now to prevent tens of millions of hardworking Americans from being underpaid any longer. And just to give you an idea of how much of an impact this would have on people's lives, Cenk, $15 an hour for the federal minimum wage would increase the wages of 32 million workers, a majority of whom currently obviously live below the poverty line, because the previous federal minimum wage, the one that has been implemented, is only $7.25, which is it's not even a minimum wage. That is a starvation wage. That's why we have so many people in this country who end up working full-time jobs, but still find themselves homeless, because it's not enough money to be able to pay your rent, to be able to buy groceries. You have people living in their cars while, at the same time working full-time jobs at some of the biggest companies in this country.
Yeah, so first of all, I should also note that it would be a $92 billion pay increase per year for those 32 million Americans. So that's a giant number. That's why Chamber of Commerce hates it. And they're using every politician they have to try to kill it while you don't notice, right? Because they don't want to pay you more. They want to give that to their executives and their shareholders. So that's, otherwise this would be a no-brainer. Well over 2/3 of the country want this. 83% of the country, including every demographic, says that we need to increase the minimum wage. I mean, how much more popular does it have to be? The only reason why we're even having this debate is because big corporate donors have told not just Republicans, but Democrats, you are not allowed to do this. That's why I love the fight back from the House progressives. 23 of them in all, every one of them that signed is an American hero, honestly led by the Justice Democrats. They're all in there. Ro Khanna is leading the charge. I want to give you another quote from Ro because it's so important. He said, "We've been asked politely but firmly to compromise on nearly all of our principles and goals. Not this time. If we don't overrule the Senate parliamentarian, we are condoning poverty wages for millions of Americans. That's why I'm leading my colleagues in urging the Biden administration to lean on the clear precedent and overrule this misguided decision. Give America a raise." There you go, Ro Khanna, first ever Justice Democrat, and he did it when he was an incumbent and he didn't have to do it. He organized this letter and great quotes from Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Jamal Bowman, you name it. And Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush make a great point. This affects African Americans and Latinos more than anyone else. So now the Biden administration and Kamala Harris are going to turn around and go, no, we care about the parliamentarian more than we care about you guys. And look, the reason why we never win is because there's never any pushback in Washington from progressives. And now they're pushing back and going, no, we're just not gonna let you get away with it. Bernie's gotta put it in the bill, and then Kamala Harris, as the presiding officer, as these other legislators are pointing out, has complete authority to put it in the bill. If she doesn't, it's not the parliamentarians' fault, it's not the Republicans' fault or Mitch McConnell's fault. It's Kamala Harris's fault. On the other hand, by the way, and they point this out, she could be the hero. Bernie puts it in the bill. He's the hero for bringing it all the way here and putting it in the bill, which hasn't happened yet. Then Kamala Harris comes in and saves the day as the presiding officer. She becomes the hero. So where's the downside?
I mean, Kamala Harris is planning on running for president.
Yes.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You think you're gonna run for president and this won't come back to bite you? Of course it will. She ran her presidential campaign during the last Democratic primaries on this idea that she's very progressive, that she wants to fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage. And that's really the other part of this story that's so infuriating. They all think we're suckers. They all think that they can just lie to us, that they can campaign on proposals that they know is incredibly popular with people. I mean, Florida, a red state, just passed a federal a minimum wage hike through a ballot initiative. 61% of Floridians voted to increase the federal minimum wage. This is something that's popular on both sides of the aisle because, again, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, a liberal, conservative, progressive. We're all, as workers, living under this broken, unequal system where we sit back and watch people get paid starvation wages as they're working full time and living in the back of their trucks because they can't afford rent. At the same time, you have Jeff Bezos hoarding all that wealth. You have other corporate CEOs hoarding all their wealth. You have Silicon Valley CEOs making a ton of money during the coronavirus pandemic. There is no excuse to not include that provision in the coronavirus relief bill. There's no excuse for Kamala Harris to not overrule the parliamentarian. And then the third part of all of this, as you guys know, is to show up to West Virginia, show up to Arizona, and start rallying for this. Because you have Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin pretending as if a $15 an hour minimum wage hike is not popular. You better damn believe it is popular. So this is a bit of a fight. It's more than just one thing that we need to do. We need to ensure that it's in that final bill. We need to ensure that Kamala Harris does the right thing and overrules the parliamentarian. And then we got to make sure that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema know that if they vote against a $15 an hour minimum wage, it'll come back to haunt them as well when they're ready to run for re-election.
Yeah, and guys, so I want to explain the process just a little bit better because it's so important and you can begin to see why this is very doable. So we're doing hashtag don't kill Bernie because Bernie hasn't even put it in the bill yet. That's unfortunately step one. It should be fortunately step one. So then you move on to step two, which is what these legislators are doing, which is pressuring Kamala Harris. To answer Anna's question, why is this even a hard question for Kamala Harris, who's gonna run in 2024? Because she's thinking she could kill it without anyone noticing, and that way she gets credit from her donors. And they go, great job, Kamala, we'll give you more money for killing it without anybody. And then she doesn't have to pay a price with the voters. But what the Justice Democrats and other progressives in the House are saying is, no, we're not gonna let you get away with it. If you're gonna kill it, you're gonna have to kill it in front of everyone. We're putting the spotlight on it. Now you got a real choice to make. Yes, that's why you needed progressives in the House. Let me read you Bowman's quote. This is Jamal Bowman, just Democrat, just won. He said, the American people gave the Biden administration a mandate in the past election, a mandate that included passing a $15 minimum wage. We didn't organize and show up at the polls for one unelected person to suppress wages, okay? No, this is not about suppressing wages. We promised the exact opposite. And so did you, Vice President Harris. So when you put that spotlight on, if she says, oh no, nope, I don't care. I'm gonna go against the voters. She's gonna be in a lot of trouble. On the other hand, if she comes in and Biden, meaning, remember how Biden did that to Obama on gay rights? He was like, oh, I'm coming out first. If she comes out first on $15 minimum wage and says she's overruling the parliament, by the way, she doesn't even have to overrule the parliament. Parliamentarian doesn't rule, just advice. If she says, yes, it's in the bill as the presiding officer, she's the hero, she saves the day, right? And then she delivers on her promises. And then, this is really important, then they need 60 votes to take it out. They don't have 60 votes. So if they somehow get to a 50 vote margin, they might have to kill a portion of the filibuster to do that. It's a win-win. So all we got to do is they're right. Roe is right, Jamal's right, they're all right. You put Kamala Harris on the spot and we set up a win-win. And then at that point, if Manchin and Sinema want to kill a part of the filibuster and then vote against higher wages, yes, there's gonna be a price to pay. And guys, we thought all of this out, okay? And then the last part of it is Rebellion PAC comes in. We already have ads ready against Manchin and Sinema, and we will unleash those. So, and please make us do that. No, look, I just wanted to pass. I don't want to have to do that, but those ads are devastating, and we will run them ad nauseum in West Virginia and Arizona, because this is now the battle is joined. Before, the establishment would just steamroll everything, and the corporate media would run cover for them, and they'd play a shell game. Oh, Pelosi doesn't have the votes. Schumer doesn't have the votes. Oh, we both have the votes. Oh, now the parliamentarian. It's a shell game, and Justice Democrats are calling BS on it. Bernie joined the fight. And lastly, Elizabeth Warren came in today and said, yes, we got to ignore the parliamentarians' so-called advice, and we need to pass this thing. Put it in the bill and pass it. Warren's here. Justice Democrats are here. Bernie, show up and let's do this together.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to give some more detail into what Warren said. So it was reported that she supports the calls from these House progressives to evade the parliamentarian to raise the federal minimum wage. And this is a direct quote. She says, this is a short-term solution, but the real solution is to get rid of the filibuster, she says. And I absolutely agree with that. And David Sirota, of course, quote tweeted that and said, good for Senator Warren, the first senator to speak up in support. Solid. We now have a situation where the Democratic president wants Democrats to side with Mitch McConnell on rules to block a House-passed Democratic minimum wage bill. Truly insane, and I couldn't agree more with that. So good for Senator Warren, and honestly, some of the known progressives in the Senate who have not chimed in yet. People like Senator Markey, for instance. It's a little bit of an issue. If I were you, I would definitely speak out immediately, because people are paying close attention, including us. We don't have loyalties to people simply because they label themselves as progressives. We're gonna hold lawmakers accountable if they find themselves in a position to actually do the right thing and decide to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, so look, guys, understand how this went, and I swear to God, this is exactly how it went down. Friday night, after the parliamentarian ruled on Thursday, Friday night, this thing was almost $15 minimum wage was almost completely dead. And then TYT viewers came in, you guys signed a petition, you started doing videos, you started putting it online, and all of a sudden the plan B that Sanders and Wyden were gonna go to, gone. They withdrew it in the weekend, and then Ro Khanna and the Justice Democrats come in with the cavalry. That petition is so important, okay? So TYT.com/petition/don't kill it, Bernie. Then Ro Khanna and the Justice Democrats come in and they create pressure from the House. Now what's Bernie's gonna do? Now he's got other progressives saying you gotta put it in the bill. Then when Warren comes in, she's out, for the moment being outflanking Bernie on the left. And now why wouldn't Bernie put it in if another senator is saying put it in, right? It would be weirdly corporate not to put it in. That makes no sense. So you guys started, there were other people involved, but not that many, honestly, okay? You guys started the ball rolling. By the way, Sirota at Daily Poster has been great in check out his articles, his research, his facts are all 100% right. And he's been leading through his reporting. And so he's been great on this. And now we're at a point where Bernie, it feels like he's gotta do it. It would be crazy not to do it. If he puts it in, we got a real shot at this. And if we win, all those people I just listed should receive all the credit in the world. And that's all of us fighting together for someone we don't know.
All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, Joe Biden did pay some lip service to labor, but is he gonna actually put some action behind it? We'll give you the details on that story and more when we come back.
during the break, I'm going to read some things to you guys. That was a good graphic we put up, but it's actually over 8,500 signatures now. That's an old version of it at tyt.com/petition/don't kill it, Bernie. Can I see 10,000 signatures? All right, look at all these American heroes. Just joined on YouTube. Jacob Anderson, Darwin Ellis, Gypsy Lady, Shannon Price, Nepo Crates, Kaylin Crowley, Alexa Thatcher, Robert Crocker. Is that what a hero would do? Join a movement that's actually changing the country? I guess that's what they would do. Join button's right below the video. It's not confusing. Get the census level. You get the post game. We got a fun post game today. Half of it will be serious, also on this minimum wage issue, and half of it will be quote unquote light and fluffy. Okay, so check that out, members. tyt.com/join anywhere else. On Twitch, as you all know, here I'll read one of yours. Sean the Sasquatch writes in. Member for 6 years, Twitch sub for a few months. Jim 818 writes in, take this Bezos money, y'all. Okay, so if you have Amazon Prime, it is free for you guys, but we do get the money, so it's win-win for everybody except Jeff Bezos. All right, no, he likes it, that's why he's doing it, so everybody wins. So now, Peter Hamby writes in a super chat, how many of their donors are saying that it's quote, it's our money and we want to keep it, and the Democrats are agreeing? Republicans, it's automatic, and conservatives don't care if they starve to death. Yeah, Peter, honestly, that's pretty much how it's going down. The Chamber of Commerce speaks for the business community and for all those donors. So when they say, and they recently met with Biden and they said, no, I don't want you to do the minimum wage. And then Biden says, okay, we're not doing the minimum wage. Why? Parliamentarian. But remember, Biden said a week before the parliamentarian ruled that if the parliamentarian rules that way, we're definitely gonna kill it. Wink, wink. He wanted to kill it all along. Super obvious. Let's see if Kamala Harris has any courage. Little Max says something that's important on Super Chat. I don't think people realize that even a Manchin no vote is a quasi win. We'll have everyone on the record that they did not care if people got paid more. Gee, I wonder what we will campaign on in 22 and 24. That's exactly right. That's why they're asking Bernie to cover for them. I'm keeping it real. Like, I'm sure that Bernie's team does not view it that way. They like, oh, parliamentarian, blah, 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 and they're buying into that nonsense, okay? I guess, I hope not, right? And they still have time to act here. But it's real that in Washington, they think, what if we lose the vote? Who cares? If you don't try, it has no chance of success. Try it, and then at least we have people on the record that is definitely a win. All right, we'll be back. Turks, Cenk, and Anna with you guys. I tell you, we do this show together. You prove it right every day. On Twitch, by the way, Bob Christina gave 1,000 bits. Bits sound like they're unimportant by definition. It's just a bit. No, they matter a lot, and they help the show a lot. So thank you, Bob. Really appreciate it, and everyone who's chipped in. Lady Dragon, wonderful donation on Super Chat. Really appreciate it. Your comment just got erased. Don't worry, it'll get put back on, and I'll read it later. So we've got so much more for you guys. So let's give you the news and then I'll come back to the comments.
All right. In a surprising move, President Joe Biden decided to come out in support of the organizing workers in Bessemer, Alabama. These are Amazon warehouse workers who are currently in the process of trying to form a union. We'll see whether or not they'll be able to do so by March 29th. That's when the ballots for forming a union will come in. They'll count the votes from the employees and see if the majority of them do in fact want to unionize. Now, he didn't mention Amazon by name, but it was very clear that he was referring to the Bessemer, Alabama Amazon warehouse workers. And here's what he had to say in the video that he released just over the weekend.
The choice to join a union is up to the workers, full stop. Full stop. Today and over the next few days and weeks, workers in Alabama and all across America are voting on whether to organize a union in their workplace. This is vitally important, a vitally important choice as America grapples with the deadly pandemic, the economic crisis, and the reckoning on race. What it reveals the deep disparities that still exist in our country. And there should be no intimidation, no coercion, no threats, no anti-union propaganda.
Unfortunately, since these are employees in Alabama, a state that doesn't have very many labor laws on the books, there is quite a bit of intimidation and propaganda taking place on behalf of Amazon. They're forcing their workers, 6,000 of them, to attend anti-union meetings. They're also playing some pretty sick tricks when it comes to basically squashing any efforts to organize. So for instance, they're not allowed to organize when they're on the Amazon, premises. Like they have to do so outside of work. And so one thing that they've been doing with some of these organizers is they've been talking to Amazon employees as they're stopped at red lights, before they go into work. And what it appears happened is Amazon got the county to change the timing of the lights. That way they don't have enough time to talk to the employees. Just want to show you a quick video that was put together to kind of explain how this all went down. Take a look.
Amazon actually had the city to come out there and recalibrate the red lights.
There was a truck across the field that had been sitting there for about 2 hours. And so we went over to him and he said, no guys, I'm just here to do a traffic study. Right there at our red light where we stand. And then they stayed there for the rest of that day. And from that day forward, those red lights were completely different.
And the reason they do that is when they come down the exit, that red light will turn green. And they have to keep going.
Oh, because
so they can't stop and chat with them.
A person might pull up and say, hey, can you answer this quick question for me? By the time she gets that out of her mouth, the light has changed green that quick.
It's caused an accident since we've been out there. Big Mike almost got hit.
2 cars crashed and jumped up on the block where I was standing at. I had to literally jump off the block, get back up and try to help the people to make sure they was okay.
So this is a big deal, Cenk, especially considering the fact that it's pretty unprecedented for a sitting president to be this supportive, at least even if it's lip service, toward workers organizing and forming a union. And I think it's really important when it comes to the single largest employer in the country, which is Amazon. We're talking about 6,000 warehouse workers in Bessemer, Alabama alone, and we know what their labor conditions are like. We've reported stories about how these warehouse workers are treated. So this is really important.
Yeah, so first of all, on that red light, it's a small point, but the county might or might not know what Amazon's motives were. Amazon changing the light, their motive is super clear, okay? But the county might be in on it or not in on it, and it just fell for Amazon's trick. We don't know. Okay, so now moving on to the more important points. Joe Biden putting out that video, that's really good. I'm really glad he did it. It's already better than Obama. Obama had that famous line about, oh my God, if the unions ever go on strike, do we have
that video? Yes, yeah. So let me give you some context real quick though, because this video is before he got elected. He campaigned pretending as if he would put his walking shoes on and join workers at the picket line. So just know that this is in 2007 before he got elected, and obviously afterwards when he did get elected, he did not support workers the way that he said he would. So let's just take a quick look at that. It's a short video.
If American workers are being denied their right
to organize and collectively bargain when I'm in the White House, I'll put on a comfortable pair of shoes myself. I'll walk on that picket line with you as President of the United States of America.
Okay.
Didn't happen.
Yeah, those are the most unused pair of shoes in American history. So of course they did go on strike, famously in Wisconsin, and it was about collective bargaining. It was exactly what Obama was talking about, and he just could not find those shoes in the closet. Barely engaged in the fight at all because, God forbid, it could hurt his ratings. So he did almost nothing to help the workers in Wisconsin, Obama. And now, of course, Biden was part of that administration. Of course, he followed suit. So this is already better than Obama, that at least Biden is coming out as president and making a statement about it. It's weird that he's not bothering to mention Amazon and the particular case, even though he says Alabama. Just finish it, Joe. Who cares? What are you still scared of Amazon? Anyway, I'm trying to give him credit. God bless. I like that you made the comment, okay? So now, but if you want to keep it real on what actually matters, there's one thing that Biden could do that would make a giant difference. You just say, that's it, I'm in favor of the $15 minimum wage, and we're not gonna let the parliamentarian kill it. Parliamentarian has no power, we have the power. Kamala Harris is the presiding officer of the Senate, and she will rule that we can use reconciliation for the $15 minimum wage. The workers of Alabama, congratulations, I just gave you a giant raise. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't unionize. Amazon is a near perfect company to unionize against. They're gigantic, they're worth about $1 trillion. They treat their workers very poorly. In the past, they used to have ambulances in front of the hospital because they figured out that it was cheaper to have ambulances than to pay for the air conditioning. Now they got so much negative publicity, they changed that policy, but now they still time a lot of their workers for how long they can stay in the bathroom. I mean, if you're not organizing around that, I don't know when you would ever organize. So they should definitely unionize Amazon in Alabama. It's like the largest corporation in the world almost. And so that's a perfect situation for a union. And so let's go, let's all unite on the wages and the workers' rights in that situation.
And Cenk, if I may, there's one more thing that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, because it's also one way that Biden can show that he doesn't just talk the talk, that he's actually willing to back substantive legislation that would help protect workers' rights to organize. So it's known as the PRO Act. It actually passed in the House already, obviously by party lines. Some Republicans voted in favor for it, but it's important because the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947 essentially stripped away some of the protections that unions had. Like it really did away with some of the strength that labor had in the country. And it did so by allowing states like Alabama to pass right to work laws. So I wanna give you some details on what the PRO Act would do. The Protecting the Right to Organize Act, known as the PRO Act, would amend some of the country's decades-old labor laws to give workers more power during disputes at work, add penalties for companies that retaliate against workers who organize, and grant some hundreds of thousands of workers collective bargaining rights they don't currently have. It would also weaken right to work laws in 27 states that allow employees to forego participating in and paying dues to unions. So let me explain that real quick, because part of the Taft-Hartley Act was to basically make it mandatory that if a portion of the workers at a company decide to unionize, well then they can't force other workers in that company to pay union dues if they don't want to be part of the union. However, they would also get, the non-unionized workers would also get the same benefits that the unionized workers fight for. The unionized workers will go on strike. They'll lose their wages as they're on strike, and as their colleagues and their coworkers are crossing the picket line to go to work. Their workers, what they're fighting for, what they accomplish through those strikes, would still extend to those workers who don't join them in the fight. So what does that do? It disincentivizes people from joining the union, from being part of that fight, and more importantly, from paying the union dues that that help to strengthen that union. So that's part of what would be repealed under this PRO Act. So I haven't heard Biden, mention a peep about that, and I do think it's important for him to show that he's willing to back actual legislation that would strengthen labor and people's bargaining rights in this country.
All right, last two things. The reason why I love this fight so much is because, look, I'm gonna keep it real. Sometimes unions go in and they're afraid to take on fights with giant corporations because they have so much power. So they'll go pick on the local mom and pop and they organize against the local diner and the local warehouse. It makes it even harder to compete against Amazon. Amazon's like, thank you very much, really appreciate it. And the union thinks, well, that's a fight I could win. So in this case, they're not doing that. They're going after the actual giant corporation. Well, more power to you, brother. That's the fight we all agree to. And that doesn't secretly help giant big businesses. It actually challenges power. That's what unions are supposed to do. So love this one, okay? And I'm gonna read one comment from our audience, from our members. A very stable dragon wrote in light of the $15 minimum wage battle and that Biden hasn't come right out and say that he should be left in the bill, Biden's strong words in support of unions collapses. Unions fight for higher wages. If Biden was truly pro-union, he'd be pro $15 minimum wage. And so that's absolutely right. Biden doesn't have to say anything about this. He could just put the $15 minimum wage in the COVID relief bill, and that's it. That'd be the most pro-union thing you could ever do. Giant $92 billion raise for workers across this country every single year. But Biden says he wants the $15 minimum wage, and every person in the media writes that he wants it. But then he helps kill it by saying, no, the parliamentarian is more important than 32 million workers in this country. So understand right now, as things stand, Joe Biden plans to kill the $15 minimum wage. Do not let him blame Republicans. They have the power to put it in the bill. And Biden and Kamala Harris at this point are choosing not to use that power on behalf of workers. So I like the video, but it really is the tip of the iceberg in what he could do. Go find those shoes in the closet, Joe, and actually put them on, and then tie them, and then walk around.
All right, let's discuss some of these updates on Andrew Cuomo before we go to our next break. So we've been talking about Cuomo quite a bit lately, and he has been embroiled in some pretty serious scandals. So New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is apologizing after now a second former aide has come forward and accused him of sexual harassment. This weekend, former aide Charlotte Bennett, a health policy advisor in the Democratic governor's administration until November, told the New York Times that Cuomo asked her all sorts of inappropriate questions about her sex life, including whether she had ever slept with older men. And I should note that she's younger, Cuomo is much older than her, so it was easy to kind of connect the dots and figure out that he was trying to refer to himself there. Charlotte Bennett said the governor had asked her numerous questions about her personal life, including whether she thought age made a difference in romantic relationships, and had said that he was open to relationships with women in their 20s. Wow, what a revelation. An older man is interested in a relationship with a woman who's much younger, wow. Comments that she interpreted as clear overtures, for obvious reasons, to a sexual relationship. And I wanted to give you this quote from Charlotte Bennett. She said this: he asked me if I believed if age made a difference in relationships. And he also asked me in the same conversation if I had ever been with an older man. I understood the governor wanted to sleep with me and felt horribly uncomfortable and scared and was wondering how I was going to get out of it and assumed it was the end of my job. And that power imbalance is a huge problem because he's her boss and he's asking her incredibly inappropriate, invasive questions. And it puts female employees like her, like Charlotte Bennett, in a terrible position. And it takes a lot to come out and speak out about her alleged experiences with Cuomo. And I should also note that this is now the second former aide who's come out and alleged that he had sexually harassed her.
Yeah, so look, Cuomo's in trouble. So the nursing home situation was a debacle to begin with. And now this layered on top is a very powerful 1-2 punches. Now, but let's break it down. So let's just do political analysis for a second of how this plays out. There's of course a substance that Anna talked about whether there's harassment in the first place, right? That's a more important issue. But when you look at the politics of it, so if it turns out that he tried to kiss the first person that came out, and that's what she alleged, well, then he's in a world of trouble. You cannot cross that line. Now, Andrew Cuomo swears up and down in his public statements that he did not do anything physical. So that will be pivotal. Then number two, if it was just joking around in general, which is what Cuomo's statements seem to indicate, then he would almost certainly survive that politically. Whether you think he should or not, he would definitely survive that. But the middle ground one, and where it'll be interesting politically, and for a lot of you will not be middle ground, is the flirting. It's the unsolicited and fairly clear flirting with both of these women. Now I say fairly clear, but to be fair, if these accounts are right, it's definitive. That's definitely flirting, right? It's not really in question. Now he can come out and say they're not correct, and that's not how the conversations happen. And in one of the cases on the plane, he has witnesses to back him up on the strip poker comment from the first set of allegations, right? But if it turns out he really did say these things, well, that then we're just from a political perspective, we're gonna see how many allies he has and how many enemies he has in the state, and we're gonna see how much people are enraged by it if they think. And and this is not good, and it certainly does not speak to all older Americans, but a lot of older Americans think the flirting is not that big a deal. Now, a lot of you will be enraged by even hearing that opinion, but I'm not saying it. I'm relaying to you what older Americans think because I've seen it in other stories. Younger Americans, on the other hand, think it's totally unacceptable and that he's got to resign if he does that. So there's that battle too. So that's what makes it a really interesting story on many levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to give you his apology because he doesn't apologize for what he said. He apologizes for how it was interpreted. But I think that this so-called apology is important to mention because he's not denying that he made these comments. So he says, I now understand that my interactions may have been insensitive or too personal, and that some of my comments, given my position, made others feel in ways I never intended. I acknowledge some of the things I have said and have been misinterpreted as an unwanted flirtation. To the extent anyone felt that way, I am truly sorry about that. So that's not a denial. It's also not really a full-blown apology. It's more of a, if I have offended you, I do apologize for that. But what I do also kind of find interesting, Cenk, is that this is an important story, don't get me wrong, and it's something that should be investigated. But I do find it interesting that Cuomo's scandal regarding his cover-up of mass deaths in his own state, because of decisions he made related to the coronavirus pandemic in nursing homes, didn't really seem to get as much attention as this does. And I just find that questionable, to be honest.
Anna, you're so right about that. And it's actually super frustrating. It's not to say that this story shouldn't get attention, it should.
Definitely.
But the press is obsessed with anything related to sex. And so it's not that they shouldn't be obsessed with these allegations. It's that they should be at least as obsessed with all the people that died in the nursing homes. So, Cuomo made a really terrible decision to take them out of the hospitals, COVID patients, and put them into nursing homes. I mean, that was just flat out disastrous. Then he clearly covered it up. And let alone the Medicaid cuts that caused the problem with the hospitals in the first place. So when you put all that together, that is a massive story. And it got some play, but these allegations are getting a lot more play. So, and look, some of you might think, hey, Cuomo's a giant corporate Democrat, so I don't really care what gets him. I do care about the principles, and I think that the nursing home story is is one that people should stay on, because that's just so important to how you actually govern.
When we come back from the break, we have a major update on the fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage. Bernie has spoken. We'll give you those details and more when we return. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
Came in late to watch TYT Old School, and I hear Cenk Uygur talking about napkins. Is this the kind of nonsense Anna Kasparian was talking about? Gotta love membership privileges. Gotta love them.
Please have Dave on every 4 episodes or so.
Watching Ben Mankiewicz and Cenk Uygur on Old School talking is exactly like watching Seinfeld and George. I'm not sure if that's a compliment.
Who's on Old School today? Is there one? At Dave Kohler. I hope it's not Brett Ehrlich.
This episode of Old School has killed me. Who knew a conversation about good and bad underwear could be so hilarious and relatable?
Couple things about this video. Dave Kohler looks so badass.
There's more than a 73% chance this Old School will be really funny. Cenk Uygur has been up since 4 a.m., so he's tired. Hence, everything will seem funnier to him. P.S. Remember, food talk, new words, and no or very little politics.
Dave Kohler, enjoyed performance on Old School. Can we please hear about your time as a geologist? One geologist to another?
I appreciate that all these people enjoy it because I know Cenk loves to do it, and he does it because he knows the fans love it too.
This looks like a conspiracy. This looks like a scheme to defraud.
The Bush administration put folks into the regulatory agencies who believed in destroying regulations.
Memories of the Great Depression are faded.
They stood on the floor of the Senate day after day attacking what they were trying to do.
They just generated all this junk, took home huge bonuses, and then when it collapsed, they said, oh, not us.
What they ginned up was pure extortion, putting a gun to the head of Congress.
Time and again, they heard the devastation that was happening in low and moderate income communities caused by bankers, by lenders, and they chose to ignore it.
I understood that the SEC was not merely a weakened version of what it was supposed to be. It was an agent of Wall Street.
When no one's enforcing the law, the criminals take over.
I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed.
The president labeled him a son of a bitch.
I don't think it's good to be a distraction to your team.
To stand proudly for the national anthem.
You know, some of these people need to move to another country.
Well, you shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
The president is put in place to amplify the racists in this country.
Black men and boys are killed at an exponentially higher rate than white men and boys, as outlined by PBS. Black people are most likely to be killed by police, found mappingpoliceviolence.org. Personally, my biggest gripe is not seeing how sports and politics have been attached at the hip. From the jockey syndrome, to the Negro Leagues, to Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Muhammad Ali, to modern day and everything in between. This is not an escape. It is a reflection of reality and a reflection of the times.
On the White House lawn, would that
I'm Mike Shekels, and I'm the Director of Technical Operations, so if you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it. This here is Johnny Greenwald.
I'm Manager of Post-Production Technology. Simplest terms is I deliver the content.
And this is our master control room. We have many, many more destinations than ever before, and we created this room to consolidate it, to make sure that everything's going out is up to standard, so we meet all of our contractual agreements.
Young Turks, Jake and Anna. We got great news for you. Anna, go ahead.
All right. Senator Bernie Sanders, the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, has spoken regarding the Senate parliamentarians' opinion that the $15 an hour minimum wage should be stripped out of the coronavirus relief package. And his advice is that she should be ignored because it turns out that she can be overruled. She's an unelected Senate staffer, and Bernie said as much in his statement to reporters. He said, quote, "My personal view is that the idea that we have a Senate staffer, a high-ranking staffer, deciding whether 30 million Americans get a pay raise or not is nonsensical. We have got to make that decision, not a staffer who's unelected. So my own view is that we should ignore the rulings, the decision of the parliamentarian." Sanders added that given the enormous crises facing this country and the desperation of working families, we have got to, as soon as possible, end the filibuster. We cannot have a minority of members define what the American people want. And Sanders did say that he will force a vote on an amendment raising the federal minimum wage this week. Just to give you a few more statements from Senator Sanders, he also told reporters, quote, "To the best of my knowledge, there will be a vote on the minimum wage and we'll see what happens. I intend to offer the bill that will raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and we'll see how the votes go. If we fail in this legislation, I'll be back. We're going to keep going. We are going to raise the minimum wage very shortly to $15 an hour."
All right, guys, I'm so proud of you. I'm not kidding and I'm not exaggerating. You guys were a huge part in making this happen. So as things stood on Friday night, this was not going to go in the bill. They had a plan B and they were going to do something else. You guys started making videos like I asked you over the weekend, asking Bernie, please stay in the fight. You taught us how to do this. Please keep going. You signed a petition that we did, and we did a hashtag campaign on Twitter. It was trending all Friday night. It was hashtag Don't Kill It, Bernie. And of course, Bernie was going to listen to you. Of course he was. But you had to give him a nudge, and you gave him a nudge, and now this is so amazing. This is wonderful. So number one credit goes to Bernie Sanders. Because look, at the end of the day, it is the decision makers that make the decisions. It's our job to fight in the direction that you guys want. And it's their job to make those decisions. So Bernie makes a decision, we're going for it, we're going for it. There's a little devil in the details here. That quote that Anna read you about how he said, I intend to offer the bill that will raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It's much better if it's in the underlying bill. Every time a bill comes over from the other house, normally the chair of the committee that it goes to writes the bill. In this case, it's the budget committee. Bernie Sanders is the chairman of the budget committee. If Schumer tries to overrule him and write the bill himself, then everybody should know that. Because that would be Chuck Schumer doing something very unusual. That would mean Chuck Schumer is actively killing the bill on purpose. Chuck Schumer has claimed that he's for the $15 minimum wage. Chuck Schumer claimed he was really upset about the parliamentarian. Chuck Schumer's claimed a lot of things. Let the man write the bill. That's his job. He's the chair of the budget committee, and there's a reason for that. If you strip him of that power, then you're saying we were kidding Bernie Sanders, we were kidding progressives. We're not going to let the chairs of these committees write these bills. No. Put it in the bill. Guys, why does it matter? Because there's a lot of arcane rules here. But if it's in the bill and they try to strip it out, they might run into the filibuster, which sets up an awesome situation. Because at that point, they need 60 votes. They can't get the 60 votes. So what they would have to do is kill a portion of the filibuster so that they could kill the minimum wage hike. Make our day. That's a win-win for us. And so is Manchin and Sinema gonna say, I hate raising your wages so much that I'm willing to go back on my pledge of not killing the filibuster? They might, because they're so in the pockets of corporate America, but that puts them in a terrible spot. Put it in the bill, put it in the bill. Okay, but overall, we're done with that portion, and we love you, Bernie. We love you. That's you. You made us into the fighters that we are, and now you're helping to finish this, guys. Now the most exciting part. Now that they're going to get a vote one way or another. Well, now it's definitely Kamala Harris's decision. Definitely. So I will come up with a hashtag and a petition within a very short period of time. So stay right here. We're going to go to Kamala next. The Justice Democrats have already pointed out in the House, 23 people signed, more than just the Justice Democrats, more people in the Progressive Caucus coming along and saying, no, Kamala Harris, we see you. We love you, sister, but we see you. And it's your decision. It is not the parliamentarians' decision. We need to tell everybody in the press, ask Kamala Harris, ask Joe Biden. Is it the VP's power or is it the parliamentarians' power? Who's president? Is Joe Biden president or is the parliamentarian president? The parliamentarian has zero power. That's a fact. It's a fact, zero power. They give advice. So does your neighbor Bob. It's totally irrelevant, not elected. So just Democrats are right, Bernie's right, Elizabeth Warren joined earlier in the day, she's right. Okay, Kamala Harris, you are the presiding officer of the Senate. This is not about 50-50. We're not talking about Kamala Harris because the vote's gonna be 50-50. We're talking about her because she is the vice president, is the presiding officer of the Senate. If she wants to hand that off to somebody like Chris Coons so he could kill it for her, that doesn't help at all. We still see you. If you're not there, it's still you that is making that decision. So now Kamala Harris said she was for the $15 minimum wage. She claimed that up and down. She swore up and down that she was for it. Now she's gonna have to decide, is she going to stick with that promise or is she gonna say, rando parliamentarian and process is more important to me than all my voters. I go back on my word to all my voters because I care about the parliamentarian more. By the way, process is not even an argument. The process is parliamentarian gives the advice and the presiding officer, who's Kamala Harris, makes the decision. So you could follow that process perfectly and still decide to put $15 minimum wage as part of reconciliation. In fact, Hubert Humphrey did it all the time when he was vice president. Walter Mondale did it when he was vice president. So there's perfect precedent and process for it. So really, the Biden administration and Kamala Harris have no excuse at all. Now the spotlight's on them. What are you gonna do, Vice President Harris? This is why you said we should elect you. We elected you. Now it's your choice. And choices have consequences, political consequences.
All right, we got to take a break, but this wouldn't be a comprehensive show if we didn't dip into the circus and give you some coverage of that. So when we come back, portions of Trump's speech, I promise very short portions of Trump's speech from CPAC.
Young Turks. So many of you with great comments. Let me do them as quickly as I can. Amber writes in, yay, Bernie. Thank you. I was really upset at the thought he would take the minimum raise out of the package. I'm so glad he did not. Truly a man of principle. Love it. That's exactly right. And thank you guys. Thank you for participating. I can't begin to tell you how important it was. And I know for a fact that you made the difference. All right, no more trigonometry is like our advanced reporter. I saw that Bernie had put it in the bill first from his comment in the member section. Christina did the same. Thank you guys. Thanks for letting us know while we're live on the air about all this stuff. The Aardvark writes in, thought bubble over Biden's head on the Alabama story. I don't want to do that whole minimum wage thing. I can save face by reading some words off a teleprompter about unions without really doing anything. Probably fair. Okay, if we're keeping it real. And then I want to read you something important about the Cuomo harassment. One Perpendicular Time wrote in, this is all from our member section, tyt.com/join to be in the member section and to get all of our content. Wrote in, old man saying, have you ever been with older men, to a young woman is not flirting and never has been. It's harassment, testing the waters for an assault. So the only part that I disagree with there is the assault part. It's definitely testing the waters. You're 100% right about that. And if you call that harassment, I totally get it. That's right, okay? But it doesn't mean that it's definitely gonna lead to an assault. In this case with Cuomo, he tests the waters in an over-the-top fashion, according to the women's allegations. And then he did not pursue it with the second person. She got transferred to another job. That doesn't make any of it any better. I'm just telling you the facts of the situation, okay? We're out of time. We'll be back. We got more stories. Back on the Young Turks. I got to read a couple comments here from Super Chat and Twitch. Amanda Price is urgent. Cenk and Anna, what if this kills the $1.9 trillion bill? No, Amanda, you got to understand two things about that. Number one, this is the excuse the establishment always uses to never do anything. What if it kills something else? Right? But more importantly in this case, no, if it's in the bill, then Manchin and Sinema are killing the bill, not us. And that puts the pressure on them for once in my lifetime. And Ro Khanna points this out too. The pressure and the question would go to the conservative Democrats. Why are you killing the bill? They always frame it as progressives killing the bill. And that's actually not true. We never kill any of the bills, right? So in this case, they'd have to say to Manchin and Sinema, you're gonna kill the whole thing? I want you to understand that because it's important. Lady Dragon says, I love TYT so much and feel so imperative for y'all to exist. I'm not only premium sub on YouTube, I'm also tier 1 sub on Twitch, tier 3 sub for TDR on YouTube, and an executive producer level member on TYT. Lady Dragon, we love you. Guys, all of us together is making this happen. That's why today is so exciting, and I'm so proud of you for all that you've done to advance the $15 minimum wage. Can you imagine if we win? Can you imagine if we win and you played a role in that? A really important role. I love it. All right, Anna, you got more.
All right, well, let's move on to the clown show. So,
but who knows? Who knows? I may even decide to beat them for a third time, okay? For a third time.
Trump, the Republican Party's top clown, showed up to the CPAC circus over the weekend to give a clear indication that he is thinking about running again in 2024. But he also addressed rumors that he might do so by forming a new party. What did he have to say about that?
And I want you to know that I'm going to continue to fight right by your side. We will do what we've done right from the beginning, which is to win. We're not starting new parties. You know, they kept saying, he's going to start a brand new party. We have the Republican Party. It's going to unite and be stronger than ever before. I am not starting a new party. That was fake news. Fake news, no. Wouldn't that be brilliant? Let's start a new party and let's divide our vote so that you can never win. No, we're not interested in that, no.
Cenk, I feel like that was shockingly one of the more logical things Trump has ever said. You know, like he doesn't usually seem to use any logic in the arguments that he makes, but in this particular case, it seems like he was able to decipher that creating a third party would not bode well for conservatives. It wouldn't bode well for him. It wouldn't bode well for the current Republican Party. It was what I was hoping for, but apparently he has some clarity on that issue.
Yeah. No, it's yes and no on this issue, right? Yes, that's true. It would split the vote and it would be disastrous, and it's irrational to start one. But no, that's not why Trump is making the decision. I can tell you very simple calculus that you could all do at home for what Trump will do next, whatever helps Trump. So for a while, it looked like Trump was going to lose control of the Republican Party and he was going to have the minority of conservatives on his side. That's when he floated the idea of a third party. It was his allies that put that in the news, not people who were opposed to him. Would he have done it if that was the fact pattern? Yes, he definitely would have done it because it would have given him a lot of power and it probably would have destroyed Republicans, right wingers, and conservatives in this country completely politically. But he doesn't care. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump. But it turns out he didn't have to do it because he saw the polls and the overwhelming majority of Republican voters are on his side, despite everything, including the riots and the violence. He didn't lose them. He totally has giant. At CPAC, they asked just a straight up approval number, 97% approval for Trump. No, he has the Republican Party 100%, and this was him gloating about it at this speech. But I will give him this, Anna. It is strategically correct to say that he should run, that he's considering running in 2024. And he went over the top in hinting at that throughout the speech, saying if a certain president re-entered the race, he would have a triumphant return in 2024, et cetera. The reason it's strategically smart is because now the press has to pay attention to him because he is the presumptive Republican nominee. No one could challenge him. They would definitely lose.
That is absolutely right. That is correct analysis. He loves being the center of attention. There's no way in hell he'd want to just go off and be completely ignored for the next 4 years. The corporate media loves covering him, so I have no doubt that it'll be a mutual decision to keep him in the news because unfortunately he continues to drive the news cycle for many of these news outlets. So I do think he's gonna, keep hinting. The question is, how will the Republican Party respond to these flirtations with running again? Because you have a whole host of Republican lawmakers who have been eyeing a run in 2024. And these are people who have been Trump loyalists specifically to serve their own self-interest in trying to, garner support among the Republican electorate. So the question is, how are they going to pursue office while knowing that Trump might also do that? And Trump is also very thin-skinned. He doesn't like anyone getting more attention than he does. So they'd have to do it in a way that doesn't upset Trump in case he actually does end up trying to run. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out with the Josh Hawleys and the Ted Cruzes of the world. These Trump yes men who know that Trump is a pretty awful person, but we're willing to play ball with him only to appeal to Republican voters. How are they gonna handle this knowing that there's a pretty good possibility that Trump will run again in 2024?
So, I know that the Carl Rose of the world are out there kidding themselves. Evan McMullen put out a tweet. He thought he was running against Trump in 2016, got his ass handed to him like everybody else. And they were saying, oh, he only got 55% of the CPAC straw polls saying they would prefer him to be the nominee in 2024. That shows weakness and softness in his numbers. No, it doesn't. The person who came in number 2 was Ron DeSantis at 22%. And the only reason Ron DeSantis came in number 2 is because he's the biggest lackey of Donald Trump. If he said something that was different than Donald Trump, he'd be dead in a second politically. Well, ask Mike Pence, it might be literally. So in fact, Mike Pence politically is totally dead. He was at under 1% because he wouldn't break the law on behalf of Donald Trump. So he's totally eliminated. So anyone who thinks that DeSantis would beat Trump, that's absurd. Of course not. And the person who came in 3rd got 5%. There is no one else. It's Trump and little baby Trump. He pats on the head, which is DeSantis. Without Papa Trump, DeSantis is nothing. So no, it's Trump 100%. I don't want that. I think it's terrible. But our job is to report the news, and that's what's reality. So if you see anybody on TV pretending that Trump is not running the Republican Party right now, either A, they don't know anything about politics. Mitch McConnell basically apologized to him, groveled to him. It's over. It's Trump's party, right? I mean, if you can't see that, you don't know anything about politics. Or they're just in there, as usual, they're in their bubble, in the mainstream establishment bubble, and they're all like, oh, we're still in charge, right? We're in charge of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden's doing everything we want. And we're back in charge of the Republican Party, right? We got Mitch McConnell doing everything. No, you're not in charge at all. No, Trump's in charge. And so, again, I loathe the man. I don't want him to be in charge. I'd much rather have anybody but him. But that's just the reality. And I'll give Trump one more piece of credit. That guy he's a studied professional con man, and he can read a room. So what he has become is he has morphed into the embodiment of the Republican voter. So, and as I was watching that whole speech, I thought, I got this. No, I understand exactly what happened. And I write about it in my new book, Justice is Coming, but it was crystallized in that speech. So it's not like he says things that are so obviously false that everybody in the audience has to know to some degree it's false, right? Like brazenly over the top lies, right? Then I realized they don't care about facts. And then you're thinking that's not a new revelation, but hold. They don't care about facts and they don't care about policy. All the conservative voter wants is emotional satisfaction. And what gives them emotional satisfaction is we're the good guys, we're right, and we have the power. We rule over everyone else. The others are bad. I'm afraid of them. And whatever you do, do not give them power. I don't care about democracy and principles and policy. I don't care who's right or who's wrong. All I care about is I want to rule over them. And that's what Trump is. That's what Trump says. He gives it to him. Like a good con man, he says, oh, you want that? It doesn't matter if it's true. Yeah, sure. Let's go, even if we have to use violence. Don't worry, white right wingers. We will still rule over them. And the Republican voter goes, yes. They literally chanted, we love you, we love you. That's who Republican voters are. And the mainstream media has been covering for them for the last 40 years.
Damn right. All right, well, let's move on to some international news because we do have some updates on Biden's foreign policy decisions that are pretty disastrous. So the Biden administration released a declassified intelligence report confirming what we already knew, that the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is the one who ordered the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, who was a Washington Post columnist and a United States resident at the time. Now, Trump tried to help MBS and the Saudi government cover up for this assassination, but the evidence was already too overwhelming and he really couldn't get that done. But there was an intelligence report that the Trump administration refused to declassify. And so the Biden administration did decide to declassify it, allowing the public to know once and for all that yes, it was Mohammed bin Salman who ordered the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi. However, the big question has been, well, what is Biden gonna do to hold MBS accountable for what he did? And the answer is pretty much nothing. Mohammed bin Salman will not have to deal with the United States implementing specific sanctions against him. There is no travel ban for Mohammed bin Salman to travel to the United States, so he's still free to travel to and fro. And also, the only thing we know for sure is that 76 Saudis involved in harassing activists and journalists will be affected with visa restrictions. That was noted by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, but he didn't announce measures to touch the Crown Prince, despite the fact that President Joe Biden promised to punish senior Saudi leaders while on the campaign trail. And real quick, Cenk, I do want to give you a statement from Jen Psaki, who is the White House press secretary. She was asked about this over the weekend, and here is her answer.
Candidate Biden, you heard there, said he would hold Saudi Arabia accountable. Now that he's president, he's imposed no travel ban, no asset freeze, no criminal charges, and most importantly, no sanctions directly on the Crown Prince himself. Why not?
Well, first, Anna, from the first day of the administration, we have been crystal clear at every level from the president on down. We're going to recalibrate this relationship and turn the page from the last 4 years. And that means ending our support for the war in Yemen, doing more to address the humanitarian crisis, and ensuring that we are holding to account the actions, the human rights abuses of this government by word and by action. The release of this report, which was held back over the last 4 years, is part of that, making that clear to the public. But we've also taken a number of steps through the Treasury Department, through the State Department, to sanction the deputy head of intelligence, to sanction the revolutionary forces in Saudi Arabia, and to make clear that we will never let this happen again.
Yeah.
So Cenk, I want to get your thoughts because Biden did pretend as if he was furious with Trump for not holding MBS accountable, but it appears that he's basically following the same foreign policy move in not wanting to upset the Saudis, because there are some interests in working with the Saudis, which I'll get to in just a second. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So understand that the Saudis have a lot of options in crown princes. So first of all, they have hundreds of princes that could be the crown prince. In other words, the next in line to the throne. In fact, the Saudis have had 6 different crown princes in the last decade alone, and only one of them actually became king. 2 died, 2 were deposed. So there's plenty of precedent and plenty of options for the Saudis to pick the next ruler. And this guy didn't just dismember Washington Post journalists. He kidnapped a foreign head of state. He kidnapped the prime minister of Lebanon. That's insane. That might be the most insane diplomatic move I've ever seen in my lifetime. Let alone the trouble that he's starting in trying to very actively start a war with Iran. He split with other allies like Qatar. That I don't mind, but it is destabilizing, right? So the guy is massive trouble. If the current king dies, he would become king for decade after decade, and there's nothing you could do about it. Whereas if the US puts pressure on now, they could pick one of hundreds of other princes, right? And so what could we do? One, we could do something very simple. We could impose the same sanctions we imposed on the lower level people in the Saudi empire that took part in this assassination. So we already did sanctions on I think about 28 different people for what happened, and froze their assets and did a travel ban. For Mohammed bin Salman, that's actually not that big a deal. I mean, he's not the brightest bulb, but if he hasn't taken most of his money outside of banks that America could touch with sanctions that might come, then he's a real knucklehead. And he has, I don't know that he's that stupid. So it's not like he's gonna lose all of his money. It would just hurt his ability to transact throughout the world, and he couldn't come to America. Now, the real deal is we then say, we're not going to sell you any more military goods, including planes, etc. If Mohammed bin Salman is the crown prince.
Yeah, so
even then, we're not picking. We're just saying, look, that's our decision. The Saudis, you can make any decision you like. If you and all they're using the military for at this point is bombing the innocent people of Yemen. So we don't want that to happen anyway. Biden claims and has taken some action towards not wanting that. So it actually does not have that much downside. Saying that you're not willing to do that is saying, no, the Saudis are more powerful than us. And there's one giant asterisk here I'll get to in a second. And we're not going to even test them at all. We're not going to put any pressure on them and they could chop up anyone they like because we care so much about the oil that we're going to let them chop people up. I'm being honest. That's look. Trump said to Bob Woodward about bin Salman, "I saved his ass." That's true. Biden basically is now saying, "Me too."
Yeah, and also you have to put Biden's decision in a bigger foreign policy context that kind of explains how damaging his decision is here toward possible peace with Iran, because Biden greenlit a airstrike in Syria against an alleged Iranian-backed militia as retaliation for what Iran allegedly did in targeting US troops in Iraq. And so in this case, what Biden is communicating to Saudi Arabia and Iran, remember Saudi Arabia and Iran are currently engaged in that proxy war in Yemen, is that Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, can literally order and execute the assassination of a US resident and a Washington Post columnist and not have to deal with any personal sanctions, nothing like it, no travel ban. But Iran retaliating against the United States for taking out its top general, well, we got to teach them a lesson and we need to hit them by dropping bombs in Syria. I mean, what chance do we have at rejoining the Iran nuclear deal if this is the kind of messaging coming from the Biden administration? I mean, there are a lot of downsides for not doing something to hold Mohammed bin Salman accountable.
Yeah, and one of our members asked a really good question. Meg asked, why did Biden even declassify this report if he wasn't going to do anything about it? Because it's a classic Biden move, Meg. He goes a quarter of the way and he goes mission accomplished. And in the old days that Biden is used to, the press would come in and give a standing ovation. They'd be like, "Oh my God, Joe Biden, conquering hero." He calls out bin Salman for the murder, and the crowd goes nuts. And they would never tell you, but he didn't actually do anything about it. Well, things have changed a little bit here, and here I'll give the press a lot of credit. And look, it was one of their own that got killed and dismembered. I hope that that's something that they care about, but no matter what the reason is, they did a great job, and you don't hear me saying that often. And they said, no credit. And so Biden played the usual Biden move and was surprised to find out that this quarter measure didn't work. I think he was genuinely taken aback by that. So now, how could you actually fix it? Like I said, don't sell weapons to them. The excuse they use is, well, then France or Russia would sell weapons to them. First, so what? Like, it's not that big a deal for our national security if the French sell them weapons instead of us. It's a big deal to Biden's donors, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, etc. So let's keep it real. It's partly about the donors here. But then the second thing is, even if the Russians, sold weapons to the Saudis instead of us, and they made money instead of Lockheed Martin making money, well, the implicit promise is to defend Saudi Arabia from their enemies, and Russia is not making that promise, and certainly France can't make that promise. So that brings you to the real reason why this decision was made. Yes, it was partly the oil. Yes, it was partly the defense contractors, but there's one other factor that I called the asterisk earlier. It's that Israel is on the side of Saudi Arabia. And Israel also, and not all of Israel, but the current right-wing government led by Netanyahu definitely wants to start a war with Iran, but they do not want to fight that war. They want us to fight that war. The Saudis are the same exact thing. So this has got nothing to do with religion. It's just that both the Saudis and the Israelis are led by massively right-wing governments. And they both say, well, we want to start a war with our enemies, but neither one of us wants to fight it. So why don't we get those Americans who we basically own, and the Saudis have given so much money to all of our politicians, and we'll just get them to start the war for us. Now, that's why you're seeing something. Saudis have a lot of power in Washington, right? But do they have this much power? Maybe not. But when you include the Israelis as well as the Saudis, it puts it over the top. And the Biden administration goes, no, we promise we won't do anything. We promise we're still trying to, we might or might not get back into that Iran deal. They could get back into that Iran deal today. They could just say the old deal, which Obama and Biden did, is now back in place. And Iran would say yes. So instead, they're not doing that. And they're playing footsies with World War III. I'm keeping it real. That's what's happening. And they're doing it on behalf, in this case, of a thuggish dictator, brutal murderer, Mohammed bin Salman.
Yeah, you're right about that. And when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more about that, bombing in Syria that the Biden administration did call for, and then we'll explain how this is impacting the United States and its relationship with Iran and the possibility of re-entering that Iran nuclear deal. Stick around, we got that story and more.
All right, I'm so energized today, and it's not just the Too Strong coffee. Okay, all right, sure, I'll do the plug. Okay, you twist my arm. Okay, I'll do the plug. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. It gives money to progressive causes. Make sure you put /TYT so TYT gets the credit for it. Organic, fair trade, gives money to Just Democrats and all the others. So go check it out. I don't know that it's actually too strong caffeine-wise, but it's the best coffee I've ever tasted. So check it out. Anyways, now I want to go to the Twitch. Little Mac McGee just gave 6,000 bits. Love you guys, love you. Little Mac, obviously you've been so great to us. Depressed Progressive continues to make us happy. Gave 2,000 bits. Those bits are not bits. They're also not bats. They're not bots. They matter. Bots bad. Bats started coronavirus bad. Bits really great, really great. Let's focus on that. Remember, Twitch guys, Big Rick energy tonight. It's got a lot of energy and it's got Rick and it's big. Okay, here it's on at 8:30 p.m. Pacific. I'm sorry, Eastern. 8:30 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/TYT. I'm back on Twitch. Here we go. Moxley's Fringe writes in, 10 months on Twitch, about 6 years with TYT, never regretted a penny. I can't sign the petition since I'm in the UK, but doing my best to spread the message online. Hashtag don't kill it, Bernie. Hashtag keep it in the damn bill. So look, mission accomplished. We always tell you, whatever you can do, share a tweet, share the stream. All this makes a difference. Your members on Twitch, on YouTube, etc., makes a giant difference. And by the way, we can now officially retire the petition and the hashtag of Don't Kill Bernie because he didn't. An unbelievable mission accomplished to you guys. And so now some people in social media are like, oh yeah, see, since Bernie put it in the bill, you didn't need to push him at all on it. Wait, how does that make sense? Guys, if he had planned to put it in the bill, look, I'm not trying to take away any credit from him. I love the guy. And if we didn't have him, we wouldn't have this conversation in the first place. He's the one that came up with $15 minimum wage. But if he was gonna put it in the bill, he would have had it Friday. He wouldn't need to be pushed by the Justice Democrats and Elizabeth Warren and you guys and all those things. He made the decision on Monday. So don't listen to the haters. Look, I gotta leave it at that, but it was definitely you, the TYT audience. You guys are awesome. You have no idea what you can do if you stick together. You have no idea. That's what I'm trying to tell you. All right, Dan Starlar writes in, so glad I found this show. FYI, in Australia, our minimum wage is close to $20. And guess what? Our country is able to function with that. They have no excuse not to raise your minimum wage. All these people are like, I tell you, the economy will collapse. Nonsense. The minimum wage is much higher in many other countries. None of their economies have collapsed. Total, utter lie. Oh, it'll cost you jobs. It hasn't cost jobs in any of those other countries. It's all lies. I love No Sleep wrote in on YouTube Super Chat. Did we do it? Bernie just said there will be a roll call vote to ignore the parliamentarian. No Sleep, we did it. We did. So you're kind of awesome. Thank you for participating in any way that you did. By the way, when we do the Kamala Harris petition, which we will do for sure tomorrow, okay? Make sure you participate in that. If I ask you to do videos, please make videos. They totally work. All right, we'll be back. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys, along with the legends of the internet. Why, that's you, the TYT audience. Not a big deal, moving DC. First of all, I want to thank Daphne Wheeler for the super chat. Appreciate it, Daphne. And Diane Glasner also did a wonderful super chat and wrote in, unemployed but can't live without hearing your voices. Love TYT. Diane, guess what? We love you and we can't live without you. So that's why we do this show together. That's why we kind of kick ass together. So all of you out there watching today, you are heroes and we love you for it. All right, Casper, go.
All right, some more foreign policy news for you all. Biden's decision, excuse me, Biden's decision to bomb Syria last week to target an alleged Iran-backed militia has already hurt the chances of the United States re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. The Pentagon, by the way, called its assault a response to recent rocket attacks on US forces in northern Iraq. Those attacks came more than a year after Iraq's parliament voted to expel US troops, an order ignored by both the Trump and Biden administrations. So US troops shouldn't be in Iraq anyway. And it's also important to note that this Iran-backed militia that attacked US troops was allegedly doing so after Trump decided to assassinate its top general. And of course, that followed Trump's decision to just rip up the Iran nuclear deal. And so, as you know, in Syria, we had a proxy war taking place. You have several countries involved, including Iran, you had Turkey involved, you had Russia involved, you had the United States involved. And so that's the reason why the airstrike happened in Syria, where this Iran-backed militia allegedly was. Now, after the US bombing in Syria last week, Iran decided to reject an offer by the European Union to sit at the table with the United States in order to negotiate re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. Iran has rejected the opportunity to discuss the future of a nuclear deal with the United States. Now, they had said that it was considering the offer to meet, signaling EU brokered negotiations were mere days or weeks away, but that maybe turned into a no on Sunday. So there are consequences for Biden, giving the green light for that airstrike in Syria. And it's also notable that Biden has refused to implement sanctions or a travel ban against Iran, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who through a now declassified report did in fact order the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, a former Washington Post columnist and also at the time a US resident. So Biden obviously taking it easy on Mohammed bin Salman, but obviously attacking Iran to quote unquote show them a lesson, teach them a lesson for what they did in allegedly attacking US troops in Iraq.
Yeah, again, such a Biden strategy, a weird quarter loaf, pointless strategy. So let me break down the policy and the politics, and then I'll get to Iran. So with the bombing, some reports say that they killed 22 people in Syria. Now, if you're going to send a message to Iran, one, you could do a bombing in Iran. Now, I don't suggest that, that would be disastrous. But that would be sending a message. Or you could do it in Iraq to their militias in Iraq that sometimes have carried out attacks against us. But even that would create diplomatic problems with Iraq. So they instead bombed Syria, where it's open season. And if your bombs fall straight and they kill citizens, who cares? Everybody's killing Syrian citizens. And I find that reprehensible. You know who cares? I care. Decent people care. Okay, we don't want random civilians dying in Syria just because you think it's a diplomatically safe place to bomb. So the policy itself is wrong. The politics of it is totally wrong and counterproductive. Republican voters, independent voters, and Democratic voters don't want us to start any more wars in the Middle East or do any of these bombings. So Biden goes, oh, well, look, I'll make Trump happy, Saudi Arabia and Israel happy, defense contractors happy, and I'll piss off the overwhelming majority of American voters by going right back to bombing in the Middle East. And why? To back up a Trump policy? That makes no sense at all. Such a Biden move, okay? So, and then now finally, when you look at all that, what should they do? Well, Iran says, well, we don't want to talk to you. I disagree with that. So that's stupid of Iran, if you ask me. It's also counterproductive. By the way, why? Because there are conservatives in Iran who say, no, America keeps bombing us and killing us, and they killed our top general, and they backed out of the deal that we had. No, don't talk to them. All they're going to do is screw us over again. So that's the Iranian government responding to pressure from conservatives in their country. Biden is responding to pressure from conservatives in our country. Stop listening to conservatives. All they want is war, okay? And even now, conservative voters in this country don't even want war anymore. Only conservative politicians and donors do. So finally, the answer is just sign the deal. Biden, we already had a deal. You wrote the deal. Just re-sign it. It's not at all complicated. There's no need to renegotiate it. And I don't know why you would renegotiate it on behalf of Donald Trump. That's maniacally stupid. Don't do that. Stop the bombings, get back into the deal, problem solved.
I want to go to this video featuring Ro Khanna. He was interviewed by Democracy Now! This morning, and it's really important to shed light on the illegality of what Biden did in ordering those airstrikes in Syria. Take a listen to what Representative Ro Khanna had to say.
Well, this is not an ambiguous case. The administration's actions are clearly illegal under the United States law and under international law. We do not have any authorization of military force to go into Syria. In fact, President Obama tried and then backed off in getting that authorization. We do not have any authorization of military force to attack Iran. The idea that this was an imminent attack on US self-defense are simply not borne out by the facts. And under international law for self-defense, we have to go to the United Nations. The administration did not do that. So my concern is that this president ran on ending endless wars, ran on respecting the United States and international law, and these actions clearly violate both.
Once Biden started announcing his Defense Department, appointments, it was very clear to me that Biden was not going to be different in foreign policy in any way. So honestly, these moves aren't very shocking to me. However, the argument that the United States was just trying to defend itself is a pretty disgusting argument, because remember, if it's proven, and it has not been proven yet, that this was an Iran-backed militia that targeted US troops, I'm not just gonna believe what comes out of the Pentagon, because they've lied to us, especially in regard to Iran before. But even if it's proven, understand why the retaliation happens in the first place. The retaliation happens when you have the United States president, in this case Donald Trump, rip up a negotiated multilateral nuclear deal, and then proceed to slap Iran with sanctions, even though they were still following through with the Iran nuclear deal after Trump had ripped it up. And then after that, Trump takes out their top general. And I'm not trying to defend the general, but my point is, if you're attempting to quell tensions, if you're attempting to approach things diplomatically, you don't then go and order airstrikes against the Iranians in Syria to make a point about how you're gonna hold them accountable, and simultaneously refuse to hold Mohammed bin Salman accountable when he ordered the assassination and dismemberment of a US resident and Washington Post columnist. So this argument that it's just self-defense is so stupid. And yeah, Biden broke the law in doing what he did because Iran did not pose an imminent threat to the United States. It was not an imminent threat to US security. So to make this decision unilaterally without Congress being able to weigh in is a problem, definitely.
So Ro Khanna is becoming a bit of a legend now. He pushed forward on the $15 minimum wage and got the progressives in the Senate to go along too. And on this issue, he's been leading from day one. And he led with Bernie Sanders on this, and he was Bernie Sanders' national co-chair. And here he's having the courage to say what a Democratic president did was illegal. You have to understand, I've been covering politics for a quarter of a century, and I hate to say that, but it's true, okay? And I don't think I've ever seen a Democrat stand up to a Democratic president in those 25 years. It's been overall incredible cowardice. But now there's someone with guts who's willing to say, this is what's real, love it. All right, members, we got an amazing post game for you guys. Hit the join button below, tyt.com/join, #BezosBucks. Okay, half of it will be light and fluffy, and half of it will be taken on the press. You're gonna love both halves. So for members, we continue in a minute.
So a lot of progressive office holders are doing something fun. I like fun. They're doing the last 2 years in 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna try it here. First, I wanna let you guys know about the years before that. Hey, remember we started the Just Democrats here on the Young Turks. It was officially launched on our air, basically by you guys. And then we featured AOC, we featured Cori Bush, and Ro Khanna became the first ever Just Democrat incumbent, all on the Young Turks. Now, the last 2 years have been a spectacular follow-up to that. So let's put the 2 minutes on the clock and do this. Young Turks got to start back in 2002, and I think we've been an important part of the progressive movement ever since. What we mainly do is amplify the progressive voice and candidates out there, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Right now, we're currently #1 most engaged news politics network online, beating CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all of them. We're #1 in total minutes watched. That means not only the number of people watching, but how long they watch. We just crossed 20 million followers and 500 million monthly views. Now, why? That's because actually the country's progressive. It's 2/3 progressive, and you guys have allowed us to be your voice, and we're incredibly thankful for that. So what did we do with that voice? Well, let's look at 2019. We went all over the country talking to you guys and the candidates. So we were in Miami, we were in Detroit, we were in Houston, and we were in Iowa. In fact, we were all over Iowa. You guys were all over Iowa, and all of the candidates saw you guys. We had wonderful people speaking, like the one and only Nina Turner at our rallies. Bernie Sanders stopped by, Andrew Yang, Elizabeth Warren. We interviewed almost everyone on the campaign trail, with the exception of Biden and Buttigieg. And we held them accountable. We even did a progressive economic pledge, and so many wonderful people signed on to that. Bernie Sanders, Warren, Marianne Williamson, AOC, the entire squad, Justice Democrats, and so many others. Now, on top of all that, we started a show called The Conversation, where we featured so many progressive thinkers, writers, and candidates. And one of the candidates we featured in 2019 was Jamal Bowman. Here comes Jamal Bowman. Then we had an amazing 2020. We hired a climate reporter. Damage Report passed 500,000 subscribers. Young Turks passed 5 million subscribers. We're getting the message out to more and more people. Bernie Sanders comes on in the heat of the primary. He comes on after the election to say what we're gonna do for the future. And then Marie Newman wins. Jamal Bowman wins. Cori Bush wins. And then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, here comes Nina Turner. Hello, somebody. And she's running for Congress, and she comes on the Young Turks first. On election week, we had nearly 2 million hours of viewing. We're #1 destination for progressives. You made all that happen. This is amazing, and thank you for those 2 years. What, I went past 2 minutes? Of course!
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but But then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before. All right, back in the post game. He's called Jake Huger, she's called Anna Kasparian. We're both called many things, but me not so much actually, other than bad things. But she's also Salt Dragon, she's Casper the Friendly Host, she's AK-47, she's Queen. I don't know, there's a lot of things she's called. There's a lot of things, okay? So I'm just keeping you guys.
We call her many things, folks. Many things.
Many things, I'm hearing many things on the street, okay? Some are saying legend. I'm not saying it. I just hear it. I just hear it in the street. I hear the chit chat going on. It's happening on the Twitch and the Switch. Okay, but it's definitely not happening with Mitch. But nonetheless, okay.
No, definitely not.
Okay, we have that great shirt in shop2it.com. Mitch better have my money. The problem is I got young kids, so I can never wear it because they're like, Baba, why should Mitch have your money? I'm like,
I mean, just explain it. Like you don't have to. I mean, it's a play on words. You don't have to explain
he's
that.
Gonna figure it out. He's gonna figure it out. We have so many illegal shirts in our shop, and that I can't wear around.
Don't say illegal.
They're not illegal. Of course, they're not illegal. Those thugs, they know how to get away with it. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So, anyways, but I was wearing a super last thing on that. I was wearing a Grand Theft Autocracy shirt today with Trump's face on it. That's also shop2it.com. And last time I wore it, I had a cash register lady go, Grand Theft Auto. Oh, I like it, right? Because she got it and it was awesome, right? Today I got the opposite. Somebody walking by just sees Trump's face on it and goes, yeah, Trump, right? Okay, and I was like, not so much. By the way, it was a wealthy person in Beverly Hills. Okay, anyways.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah. I'm gonna read one comment here, then we got light and fluffy and hard and fast. Jordan Smith writes in, we need to do more petitions to get more done. Hashtag don't kill it, Bernie was awesome. Jordan, you're right, it was awesome. It was so great job. And we'll do more. Let's do them together. And I swear to God, they can work. And I just want to give one more shout out to Ethan Gurul. He gave a lot on Super Chat. We really appreciate it. And he said, look, I'm a mixer at a bakery that pays $9.25 under the Colorado minimum wage of $12 because we go off of tips. Owner told us that we aren't worth it because we let our #1 position slip down to #3 in sales. Meanwhile, a new location is being paid $11. Sick. Okay, so if you don't have a solid minimum wage that applies to everyone, this is the kind of shenanigans that people can play, and they do play it all across the country. And another reason why I love doing this show with you guys, because those stories to me are amazing. That makes us so much more connected to you. The mainstream media never sees stories like that. All they do is they go to it's like, I know the cocktail circuit thing is kind of a cliche at this point.
But it's true. When I was on MSNBC, I went to those. They're real, they exist, and they're giant circle you-know-whats of everybody going, I do declare, right? And Tucker Carlson's a giant hit at those things. I've told the members about it before. So they really don't have the perspective that we do because of you guys. So love it. All right, let's give you the Jen Psaki story first.
All right, so Neera Tanden is, of course, Biden's pick to lead the Office of Management and Budget, and Joe Manchin, a Democrat, spoke out against Neera Tanden, saying that he would not vote in favor of confirming her. But the Biden administration is fighting hard to get Neera Tanden confirmed to make sure she has some position of power within the Biden administration. And that certainly brought up a thought that many people are sharing across the country, which is, why is Biden and his administration willing to fight so hard to get an awful woman who has all sorts of conflicts of interest confirmed into his cabinet when he's not willing to put up a fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage? His White House press secretary was asked that question, and let's see if you're at all persuaded by her answer. Take a look.
The White House doesn't have 50 votes to confirm Neera Tanden as OMB director, and yet we heard from the White House chief of staff say that the White House is they're going to fight their guts out. Fight our guts out was the phrase he used to get her confirmed. So why push for that and not push as hard, one could say, for raising the minimum wage?
Well, I think that's mixing a few things kind of irresponsibly, if I'm just being totally honest. I would say on the minimum wage, the president included a raise of the minimum wage in his package because he felt strongly that it's long overdue, that men and women working hard, trying to make ends meet, shouldn't be living at the poverty level. That's why he put it in his package. There is a process that it goes through, a parliamentary process when it's a reconciliation bill, as you know. But for people who haven't been following all the nitty-gritty of this, because it's a budgetary bill, that's why it went through the process. And again, I would send you to talk to leaders in Congress to see if they have the 50 votes necessary. But regardless, the president, the vice president have made the decision they're not going to move forward with that step. But also, it's not a simple process. It requires two steps. As it relates to Neera Tanden, she is somebody who has decades of experience. She is qualified. She is prepared to lead the budget team, and we're continue, of course, to fight for the confirmation of every nominee that the president puts forward. We'll see if we have 50 votes. That's part of the journey. That's part of democracy in action.
Cenk, you sit back. I let you go on your rants today. It's my turn because that video is so infuriating and I'm about to go off. So first of all, nice little scold you have there for a reporter asking you a legitimate question. Referring to his question as irresponsible is the same kind of tactic that Trump and Trump administration officials would use to basically communicate to reporters that they don't like those questions and maybe you should shut up. Now, obviously the Trump administration was a lot less subtle, but the scold there was pretty clear. And I don't think it was an irresponsible question at all. It's one thing for Biden to say he's in favor of the $15 an hour minimum wage. It's something completely different to actually fight to get it passed through his relief plan. Noting that an unelected Senate parliamentarian doesn't think it's such a good idea and then refusing to overrule her does not show that Biden is in any way willing to fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage. On the other hand, with Neera Tanden, he is willing to fight because they're not dropping it. She doesn't have the votes, bro. She doesn't have the votes. Let it go. And when you cite her years and years of experience, what are we talking about exactly there when it comes to Neera Tanden? Are we talking about years and years of experience in government, in trying to find ways to pass legislation without hurting future generations? No, that's not what her experience is. Her experience as the head of the Center for American Progress has been to cater to the needs of business interests. The Center for American Progress served as a laundromat for the kind of lobbying that we've been railing against on this show for years. What that think tank did was take the money that these corporate lobbyists want to pay directly to bribe our politicians. They pay the Center for American Progress instead, and then the Center for American Progress lobbies on their behalf. And since they do it in that way, it's much easier to keep that money in politics dark, meaning that it's harder to track that kind of government corruption and influence by business leaders. That's what Neera Tanden's years of experience is. That's who the Biden administration is willing to fight for, but they are not willing to fight for you to ensure that you're getting paid a minimum of $15 an hour for the work that you put in. Okay, so that's what the reality of the situation is. And I'm so sick of people pretending as if when it comes to the bread and butter issues, when it comes to the fundamentals in this country, whether it's taxation for the rich, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's ensuring that we protect workers, Democrats and Republicans do the same thing. Democrats just put a polite face on it, but at the end of the day, Biden is not willing to fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage, but he is willing to fight for a corrupt woman who tried to cut Social Security to serve as the head of the Office of Management and Budget. That's what the reality of the situation is. And Jen Psaki, as the White House press secretary, needs to get a little better at framing things so she's at least a little believable, because that right there was garbage.
All right, so first of all, I want to give credit to somebody, and that's NBC News White House correspondent Jeff Bennett, who asked that question. That was an excellent question. And so, look, we're tough on the press all the time here, but when they do well, I love giving credit. So the reason why it's an excellent question is in the case of minimum wage, you go, well, Manchin and Sinema are going to vote against us. There's nothing we could do. Nothing we can do, right? On the case of Neera Tanden, well, the same Joe Manchin is going to vote against her. So why are you saying that there's something you could do? So is there something you can do about Joe Manchin, or isn't there? Because you said that on minimum wage, there's nothing you could do, and you were going to fold immediately. And you said that was a giant priority. In the election, Joe Biden did not campaign saying, I'm gonna put Neera Tanden on my cabinet. If you elect me, Neera's going in, right? Never, right? But he said, I'm gonna do $15 minimum wage. I'm gonna raise your wages. He said it 1,000 times. It was a core promise. So when on your core promise, Manchin says no, and there's nothing you could do. On a colleague, corrupt or otherwise, that you like, you're like, oh, there's everything I can do. No, I'm gonna keep fighting. No, your priorities are super clear. And Psaki's answer was total crap. And it was terrible in two different ways. One, Anna's 100% right when she was definitely threatening him there. You put it, that's an irresponsible way of putting it. In other words, you better watch yourself, or I might move you back in the press room and not take as many of your questions. That's the implication of using that word. It's bullying the press, and they should not give into it. So great job by Jeff Bennett in the first place. Now, the second reason why it's a terrible answer is for the reasons that Anna went through, and I just went through. Look, and I have a lot of credibility on this for reasons that probably enrage some of our viewers, because I thought they should fight for Neera Tanden. Why? Because I like Neera Tanden? No. Some of the tweets she got in trouble for were mean to, well, all the tweets were mean tweets. Some of them were about me. Okay, some were about Bernie Sanders and people that we really, really like. And she did do all the things that Anna told you. So why did I think they should confirm her? Because I don't want Republicans and Joe Manchin being the actual president. I don't want them dictating to a Democratic president, here's who you're allowed to have in your cabinet and not allowed to have in your cabinet. I agree with that principle. I'm consistent though. I think you should fight Republicans and Manchin on Neera Tanden, and you should fight Republicans and Manchin on minimum wage. If you make me pick one, that's the easiest choice in the whole wide world. The $15 minimum wage, who cares about Neera Tanden? If you're gonna fight on principle, at least fight on the thing that matters. That affects 32 million Americans. That would give them a $92 billion raise every single year. Instead, you're gonna go protect Neera Tanden because you wanna do business as usual in Washington, D.C. So it's not that you're not willing to fight, it's that you're not willing to fight for us. And that's really damning.
All right, you ready for light and fluffy? I did not expect to get fired up about that.
Yeah, I'll save the rest of the points for another time. Okay, light and fluffy, go.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it was on the post-game show. I can't even remember, but you and I were talking about appreciating life, and I talked about this one house in the neighborhood that clearly like spends a lot of money on landscaping because they have the most beautiful flowers in front of their home, and they have like the most beautiful rose bush. Like it blooms throughout the year. They recently pruned the bush, so there weren't any flowers on it for a little while. But I started seeing buds come out, and then today during my run, some of those flowers bloomed. And I want to show you what it looks like, because these are the most beautiful roses in the neighborhood. They're not peonies. That's not a peony. It looks like a peony, but it's not a peony, okay?
It's not a peonies, it's a bud. It's a bud that bloomed, but not into a peonies. Instead it bloomed into a rose.
These roses, so the landscaper left the tag on one of them. And so I luckily got to figure out what kind of roses these are. They're called Princess Charlene of Monaco roses. Look how beautiful that is. Look at how beautiful that is. Those are the most beautiful roses in the world. I love them.
Okay, can I just say a couple of things here? All right, number one, I like that Anna's pulling a Michelle Bachmann here. She's like rummaging through the bushes of her neighbors to find out the name of the rose. And boy, that rose has like the most specific name I've ever heard of. Like Princess Charlene of Monaco in 1917 or whatever it was, right? I mean, I guess it makes it easier to track down if you want them, Anna.
Yeah.
And then there is something about that rose that's like, it is an Anna color. Like you have a certain taste, right? Like Charlie's like an Anna color, that's an Anna color. Right. So I'm pardoning you for diving into your neighbor's shrubbery.
Right. Well, it's in there. It's in the front of their home. So, and they're also like it's gated. Like it's a giant house with like gate. And I live in an apartment, like a condo, but like a few streets behind where we live, there are some pretty nice houses, and that's where I like to go running. By the way, they don't have sidewalks purposely to prevent people like me, the riffraff, from running in the neighborhood or taking walks in the neighborhood. So I always make a point to ignore that and still go running in the neighborhood. But
that'll show them.
That'll show them, exactly. But no, like what I love about them, okay, so real quick, you're not gonna care about this, but maybe some people love gardening and they do know about this and they do care. So the USDA assigns different zones depending on where you live. It's like the agriculture zone, right? And the whole point of that is for you to know that there are certain plants that you can't, certain plants that'll be very difficult for you to grow if you're growing it in the wrong zone. So my favorite plants or my favorite flower is the peony, right? And I tried, man, I tried real hard to plant some peonies at my parents' house. They're not in the right zone, but I'm like, I can make it work. Maybe I can do some tricks, but no, it did not work. And it's really depressing. But those flowers that look like peonies, these Princess Charlene of Monaco roses, they can grow in the zone, right? They're in the zone, guys. They're in the zone. So it's my goal to like hunt down these flowers so I can plant them over at my mom's house because she actually has outdoor space I can take advantage of. Then I can enjoy these flowers all the time at my parents'.
Okay.
I'm coming to your house.
I have no earthly idea what you're talking about when you're talking about the zone, right? All I know is that I'm in the zone. Okay, that's the only thing I know. Okay, so Anna and I had this conversation in one of the post games, and she talked about Professor Love for Peonies. So, and then I went for a run right afterwards. And we were talking about smelling the flowers, and there's always an early bloom in LA, of course. Like in LA, spring happens in February. So people that live in Cleveland are like, oh, I want to strangle you guys. Anyway, so I'm running it's like, it smells great, everything's blooming. And yeah, I'm that guy, okay? I'll sniff the flowers as I'm running. Sometimes I'll even stop and smell the flowers literally, right? So since Anna said it, I'm looking for peonies everywhere, right? I'm like, is that a peonies? Is that a peonies, right?
They don't grow in LA, they just don't.
Really?
So you're not
because
gonna find any peonies.
So I didn't see him. So this is an update for you, Anna. This is an important breaking news update. So my third run since that post game, I'm still looking for peonies. Okay. And so I saw on somebody's like Vine or something, I thought it was a penis. I don't know anything about the zone. I didn't know you were tricking me. If I knew they weren't in the zone, I wouldn't even bother looking for the peonies. Okay. So, anyways, I thought I saw peonies, and I'm nuts, right? So I like literally pointed. I was like, peonies, peonies.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! And you pronounce it really weird, so it sounds like something else. Sounds like you're running around pointing at random things and saying something else.
No, I didn't notice that. Look, I enjoy being crazy. I do.
We know.
So I remember I'm walking around the neighborhood in many different days, and folks have orange trees. Like, guys, LA is Shangri-La. It really is. Keep it real. We do that whole traffic thing so you guys don't move here. Okay, like we pretend like, oh, traffic's so bad. Traffic in DC is worse. Traffic in New York is worse, right? So anyways, I'm letting a state secret out here, quite literally. It's a state secret. So we're walking around, there's orange trees, lemon trees. It's just like totally normal neighborhoods. It's not like super fancy or anything, right? And I'm because I'm strange, I think like in the 1800s, they would have been like, which king lives in this house with all these unpicked oranges just sitting around, right? Like, no, rando middle-class person lives there. So I always thought about that. And today or yesterday, I'm walking around the neighborhood and somebody finally picked the lemons and put them in a box, the homeowner, and said, unused lemons, please take them, enjoy them, and had like a really nice note about it. And I walked by and I'm like, wait, why am I walking by? I went back, I read the whole note. I was like, and I pointed at the box, I like you.
Oh my God.
And I picked up one of the lemons and brought it home to my daughter. See, America,
that's awesome.
That's our better angels, that's our better lemons, okay? We could take those lemons and make lemonade. Literally, my daughter makes lemonade out of the lemons, okay?
So cute.
She is, but she is. You know who's in the zone? My daughter Joy. In the zone 24/7.
She can go preemies. She can grow whatever she wants. She's fantastic.
Shit, look, I'm so lucky, and she's lucky. She skips around sometimes, going, "It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day." It's like out of nowhere. Nobody was singing it on TV. It wasn't in a book. That's just who she is. Oh God, I think that's the luckiest thing in the world. Anyways, one last thing. Speaking of Shangri-La. My mother-in-law, again, rando, middle-class suburb, but in the outskirts of LA, in that case. And she grows like 27 different fruit. I'm exaggerating, but not by much. She grows so many fruit, I don't like some of them. Okay, this is all in her backyard. I don't know what zone it's in, but I looked around and I'm like, look at this, man. Jesus, like figs and grapes and oranges and apples. And that thing that I don't like, the guava, smells so bad. Anyway, and I thought, how are we this lucky? And I tell you all that because, for God's sake, if you're in a similar situation, you don't have to be super rich. You don't have to, like, these are all middle-class folks. Soak it in, soak it in. You might not know it, but you're in the zone.
So new habit of mine, and I highly recommend it if you like to partake in, Earth's wonderful gift to us, marijuana. Go for a walk, listening to, you know what? I'll make it public. I have a classical music playlist that I just started on Spotify. Listen to that music, okay? We got some Rachmaninoff, we got some Chopin. We have, just some of the best composers imaginable. Listen to that and just do it when you're stoned. And then also like just take in the nature, like take in the flowers. Even if you're in like a city, you'll still find nature around you. Like just try to focus on that while you're listening to the music. It's amazing. It's like the best feeling in the world. It'll stimulate the crap out of your brain.
Yeah. Well, yes, there is one plan I'm definitely in favor of, and it's definitely in the zone.
I'm gonna make you do it. I'm gonna make you listen to this classical music because you don't get it. Like I know that you hear classical music out of my mouth and you're like, what? No, it's just different. It makes you feel things. Like I don't know. I don't know how to exactly explain it to you, but like some of the songs, it'll bring you to tears. Some of the songs, it'll make you feel like you're up for the fight. Like it's just, classical music is amazing, and I don't think it's appreciated enough. I'm just keeping it real.
Okay, all right, I hear you. And so when AK-47 tells you that she's gonna force you to do something, likely she's gonna force you to do something. So don't move my furniture, okay? Don't come here and move the furniture. I will listen to, I will try the classical music high thing, okay? Once you threw in high, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try. I'll try anything.
You'll love it.
Yeah, and look, of course, I'm a Visigoth. Everybody knows that that I'm a barbarian. But I'm not opposed to culture. Well, sometimes, but
depends on the culture, right?
Yeah, it does. It kind of does. So I do have one classical song, but it's only because it's in popular culture. The dun 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 dun. Okay, I got that on my iTunes. It's a little too long. They get carried away.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
All right, but I'll try your showman or whatever he is, right? I'm kidding. I know who Chopin is. By the way, another license plate you'd like, Casper. I saw a license plate that yesterday said "Show Ma'am." I remember when I decided that I was going to be a talk show host. I told this friend of the family, the mom her son is my friend, and she's my mom's friend. Anyway, they both had a great reaction. One, I think I might have told you guys about in another context. He was like, "What are you going to be, Larry King?" And he thought that was like the funniest thing that he'd ever heard, right? Nearly hired Larry King, not a big deal. Okay, anyways, and she was like, "So you're going to be a showman? Is that what you're going to be, a showman?" Okay. And I don't know why that stuck with me, but anytime anything happens, I'm like, where like things go bad, I'm like, am I a showman? Is that what I am? But I never heard of showman. And so I guess if I'm a showman, you're a showman.
I guess, as you would say. I guess. All right. Well,
look, a lot of related license plates because there was I saw a license plate that literally said "Thanks God."
I know. I love that. I love that.
Unbelievable.
I once said "Thanks God" around Christian siblings, and they cracked up because it apparently is like this very common thing among immigrants. And so Christian's parents would say that all the time too. Like his dad, especially because he has a thicker Cuban accent, but he still says "Thanks God," which I love. I love it because English language doesn't make any sense. Like it should be "Thanks God." Why isn't it "Thanks God"?
We're gonna change it. Hashtag "Thanks God." We're doing a petition. It's okay. We're gonna go viral. Here comes Rokana. He also agrees with "Thanks God." Okay, we gotta go, guys.
Yeah. Big Rick Energy is next on Twitch, guys. So definitely check that out. Twitch.tv/TYT if you're not watching there already.
Big Rick Energy, go now. Okay, love you guys. See you tomorrow.